Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, council members, staff. Happy New Year, first meeting of 2024. And I think the tempo of this meeting tonight will forecast the tempo of the rest of the year, I hope. And I hope. Anyway, I'd like to call to order the meeting today at 7 p.m. January the 9th to order. If you will please stand for the pledge and remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
You may be seated. Our next item is public comment. I understand we have no one has signed up for it. Is there anybody here wishing to make public comment? Okay. Then we will move on to the reading of the consent agenda. Council, any items you wish to pull? Hearing none, or did I act too fast?
Oh, 4J.
4J. Remember the tempo of the.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. That looks like it's it.
Yep.
All right, thank
Krista.
you, Mayor Gonzalez. With item 4J removed from the consent agenda, all remaining items may be acted upon in a single motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All right. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Good background material, Serena, on the items.
This evening, we have a public hearing, item 5A, to conduct a public hearing and consider action to approve an ordinance on the first and final reading with the caption reading, Fifth Supplemental Ordinance to the Master Ordinance establishing the City of Pflugerville, Texas Utility System Revenue Financing Program, authorizing the issuance of the city's utility system revenue bonds, Series 2024A.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Dusty Traylor, Managing Director with RBC Capital Markets. It's our honor and privilege to represent the City of Pflugerville as financial advisor. Great to see you guys. Happy New Year. The report that we're bringing tonight before your action item is just a report on the sale of the final tranche of the bonds that have been issued through the Texas Water Development Board's Clean Water State Revolving Fund program. It's clean water for the Wilbarger project. And so we had $122.915 million remaining to sell. We have negotiated or gotten the rates from the Texas Water Development Board this week. And as you know, the Texas Water Development Board, the reason that you go to them is they provide a significant interest cost subsidy as compared to open market interest rates. So the interest rate on this particular financing is a 2.61%. And by comparison, had we been in traditional bond market this week, the interest rate would have been just under 4%, 3.93%. So this translates in dollars to about $28.3 million in interest savings over the life of these bonds by going through the Texas Water Development Board to conduct this financing. So really pleased with these results. And again, it's the final tranche of that 3-tranche program with the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. Got Richard Donahue here this evening as your bond counsel to answer any questions from the legal side, and I'm, of course, will be ready to answer any questions from the finance side.
Okay.
Thank you, Dusty. For the record, I'm Richard Donahue, partner with the law firm of McCall Parker Horton, and service bond counsel to the city. The ordinance before you tonight is the official action of the council approving the sale of the bonds to the Water Development Board. The ordinance is in substantially the same form as your prior revenue bond ordinances, 3 of which have been sold to the Water Development Board, and 1 of which was done with the WIFIA program. The legal security is the same. It's a pledge of the net revenues of the utility system of the city. We've pre-filed this with the Attorney General's office, which in order to get the timing to line up for anticipated closing date of February 7th, if you decide to move forward. And we posted it for a public hearing as required under your charter. And
Very
no further
good.
questions.
Council, any questions?
Good work.
Absolutely.
For all the excellent work you've done on this.
Well, thank you guys. It's a testament to, and I'm going to be short, Serena. It's a testament to this council and this administration, the financing mechanisms that you guys are going after. You've got a robust capital plan here. Everybody knows it. But you guys are seeking alternatives and have been driving towards those alternatives that will drive down the borrowing cost for that capital improvement plan. And this is one example of that. So I commend you all.
Thank you very much, yeah. All right.
Move to approve the ordinance.
We need to close the public hearing first.
Move to close the public hearing, sorry.
Second. Second it. Okay, there we go. All right, motion carried. All right, now you can make your
Move to approve the ordinance as
Okay.
presented.
Second.
second.
I'm going to request a voice vote on this. Our voting system is not communicating with itself, which means I cannot broadcast the votes.
Okay.
So I have to go through with a voice vote.
Gotcha.
Do we need to go back and vote to close the meeting?
No, she already got.
No, we didn't. That's okay.
She already got that, right?
So that one was stuck on the previous vote, so we will need to close the public hearing one more time.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, okay.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second. Have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Mr. Rogers,
I'm in favor.
Mr. McDonald.
Yes.
I'm in favor too.
Thank you. Mayor votes yes.
Eat you in a quarter.
Ms. Holliday. Councilman Ruiz.
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Wise.
Yes.
Motion carried. All right, now,
Motion approved. 5A is presented.
Second.
have a motion and a second to approve 5A. Mayor Pro Tem Wise.
Yes.
Councilman Ruiz.
Yes.
Councilperson Holliday.
Yes.
Mayor votes yes. Councilman Mateer.
Absolutely. Yes.
Councilman McDonald.
Yes.
And Councilman Rogers.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Moving on to our regular agenda. First item, 6A, conduct introductions and take action to make appointments to the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation Board of Directors, place 1, 3, 5, and 7 for 2-year terms beginning January 1st, 2024. This was carried over from last year, and I did that intentionally just to make sure that this was the only appointment item. I think we do have FAB on there later, but so we could spend a little extra time and as needed to review the candidates and make the appropriate selections to the PCDC board.
I would like to very briefly review the openings, just so that we are clear, because there is
Sure.
there's 4 openings with a 2-year term, January 2024 to December of 2025. There is also place 4, which is currently held by Mayor Pro Tem Weiss. That appointment was made last year for the term of 1 year. So that position is going to be open just for January 2024 through December of 2024.
Okay, so that's 1 year.
So there are currently 5 positions
Okay.
that will need to be.
All right.
One of them is for 1 year, 4 of them are for 2 years.
Okay.
Awesome.
And presently, council, as you're aware, we have Mayor Pro Tem Weiss was appointed. I'm also serving and up for reappointment, and I wish to seek reappointment to the PCDC board. And from a council perspective, that gives us, and Mr. McDonald, who's not up for reappointment, but he is also a council member on the PCDC board.
So, Mayor, if you're interested in serving another term, then I think we can clear up one of these pretty quickly, if you're willing.
I am. Thank you.
Motion to approve the mayor for another 2-year term.
Yeah, what place is he?
I'm not even,
Place. Oh, that makes it easy.
place what?
Place one.
Oh,
He said
Thank you.
place.
all right.
Second.
Motion to appoint the mayor for a 2-year term on place 1.
Second.
Okay. Motion is second.
Voice vote. Okay. Yay! There we go.
Okay. All right. Motion carried. Thank you very much, council.
Okay.
So that gives us 3 spots and then the 1-year term for Mayor Pro Tem Wise.
Right.
Okay.
I have talked to Mayor Pro Tem Weiss, and I think as you recall, council, when that appointment came up as a temporary appointment, he had indicated that he was willing to serve until the appointment cycle came up again for this year, and he's indicated that he's willing to relinquish that role. Is that correct?
That is indeed correct.
Okay.
I was happy to fill in for the time being, but I know we've got a lot of people. We can put it in good hands.
Sure.
Caesar, interested?
Yeah.
Are we at that point yet?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
because
then,
I want to
absolutely.
do all council before we deal with it.
So,
Sure.
so the question, I guess, larger question is, before we start going down this path is, for the last couple of years at least, we've had 2 representatives of council on there. And the thought had always been to keep council's presence relatively small. Although I think with the mayor and I there, that's questionable. But regardless, adding a 3rd member from the dais, I think, as an interim solution to an issue that we had earlier in the year, worked out well. I'm concerned about, not Caesar, I think he'd be a great person to be on PCDC, but I'm concerned about having 3 members of the dais serve on PCDC. And I think before we start making motions, we need to discuss that on a broader scale.
I share your concern. One of the issues that I'm most concerned about with having the members of the council on the PCDC is that then if another member of the council wants to bring something to the PCDC or discuss it with the council members that are on the PCDC, all of a sudden we get into a problem of a walking quorum. As it is with 2 members of the council, that's not so much of a problem. Right? One other council member can come to either the PCDC guys and say, hey, I've got an idea for economic development. At that point, we're not in a walking quorum situation. But if there are 3 members on the council on the PCDC, another council member comes to one of the 3 that's on the PCDC, and then the PCDC discusses the item that the other council member brought them to in a publicly announced meeting. There's not a problem with a walking quorum for the PCDC, but I do think that presents a potential, at least, of a walking quorum for the council. Because then you've got 4 council members that will have discussed the item that then potentially would come back to the council later for action. So that's my big concern about having 3 council members on there. Now, I understand that some cities, and Mr. Zek, you probably know more about this than I do, some cities actually have 4 council members on the PCDC. How do they avoid this problem?
Well, they probably don't talk to the council member, they talk to another member of PCDC.
Yeah, I don't know how they individually deal with that particular issue, but there are economic development corporations that have 4 council members on the.
And there are economic development corporations that are made up of the council, so.
Yeah, for type A, but not type B, because type B is limited to only
okay.
up to 4 employees or officers.
Well, I would say that if a council member has a great idea for economic development, that certainly that ought to be brought up to the council to begin with, versus going to the PCDC, because it's our responsibility to be directing economic development ideas and initiatives to the PCDC board as a whole, not as an individual council member. I understand, I think, is there a way, well, let me just say this. I know that Councilman Ruiz has attended some PCDC meetings in light of his interest of becoming a board member, has no discussion, has no comment. Is that still a safe path to take?
Certainly. So it's a tricky path to navigate. However, all EDC meetings, type A or type B, in this case type B, are properly posted meetings for the Economic Development Corporation. So in my mind, there's no concern for any open meeting violations associated with discussions held at a properly posted and conducted meeting. Same with city council meetings. The only issue you get into is if you start having discussions outside of a properly posted meeting, right? So the way to avoid that is just don't have discussions outside of a
And
properly
that's
posted
what we
meeting.
should be doing anyway.
That's always my conservative recommendation, although the law does allow 3 of you to get together and have a discussion about things.
I think 4 is way too much. I'm just.
Well, I
I'll
think
say
so.
that. Yeah, I think 4.
Well, I think if you have 3 council members, as we've had, the PCDC at large, if you will, positions are a majority vote anyway, so it's not like the council's going to override anything the
Yeah.
membership's going to do.
Agreed.
Any other expressions, comments?
Do you want to put it to a vote and then see, go from there? What do you?
Well,
Well, I would say in an act of fairness that I would just throw my name out there with the rest of everybody else. And if council should choose to, have me wait, I'll accept that. I'm fine with that. If y'all should not appoint me tonight, I should say. You have that odd look,
well,
Rudy.
I think that's not very respectful, I think, amongst the council. That's my opinion.
That it's not, I'm sorry.
Respectful to throw you in with
Oh, I see.
the crowd
Yeah.
at large.
Well,
Yeah,
they elected me, so.
And no, because I think Jim brought up a very good point to have a broader discussion about what do we think about having 3 people on PCDC, and if we need to have a vote to vote on that, or if we don't, either way, having you on there, I don't think anyone has any qualms with you being on there specifically. It was a broader issue about how many members of council should be on there. Charlie went ahead and conveyed specifically, how to make sure that, any issues that concerns are brought up are addressed. But, the reason why we asked, does anybody else have any questions, or bring it up because are you okay with the broader issues? Everyone, if your silence, does your silence mean that you're okay with having 3 members on PCDC? Doug?
So I'll speak up. Way back in my day, we actually passed bylaws that restricted council members to a single seat. So I do believe the input from the community is paramount, and the fewer of us over there, the more outside ideas we generate.
And when I was on there, we had 2, on there as well.
And at that time, I think it's important to note we had 5 council members.
Yeah.
Now we have 7. 5 votes versus 7.
So
votes
proportionally,
at that time.
that's why we were looking at it.
So two
Yeah.
never struck me as really out of bounds, since we got more votes here on council at the same time.
And I think,
It stayed in proportion.
But to be fair, some people did think that.
well, the issue then, and I think it was 2 for a while, I think we went back to 1 for a while. The issue back then was 2 on PCDC meant that they only needed +1 from council
Yeah.
to pass anything
Yeah.
that PCDC had passed. And so there was, at the time, I recall that there was some concern over that. And I think that's what the indication was, to move it back to 1. Once we expanded council, then I know Amy Madison felt that it would be a great benefit to PCDC to have the mayor sitting on the board as a representative of the city and of the Economic Development Board. And I think it's been a boon to attraction for different companies here in town. I think I heard you say 4 is too many. I concur. I would make put a similar stake in the ground and say I think 3 is too many.
That's why I think we're having the conversation. Yeah. So that's why I was saying. I mean, we got Doug, Kim. What do you think?
I think that 2 is great.
Caesar.
Normally, I would say this makes it sound like I'm being biased too, but no. Normally, I would say normally I would say that I believe 2 is perfect. But as y'all know, I'm very opinionated too, and I love to share my opinion. I think that PCDC is at a point where I think this council is at a point with PCDC where we need to decide the future of PCDC in general. And I think this is, having 3 on there would be one last effort to try to save PCDC the way it is. My personal opinion is that council should take over PCDC, but that's my personal opinion. So I think this is one last effort to see if we could save PCDC the way it is. But if y'all, I'm sure y'all don't agree with me, and that's fine. That's, like I said, I'm sharing my opinion on the dais.
No. I was, so from what I want to make sure I'm clear. What I'm hearing from you is that you have concerns about the current structure of PCDC.
In general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so consequently, what you would want to do is try to morph what that structure is. And if we kept it with 2 council members, that would be a Hail Mary to keep PCDC as it is and see if it functions to your liking. Is that right?
Somewhat, yeah, absolutely. I think, I've been very vocal about my criticism with PCDC. I think that's fair. I think everybody hears it. I think, we say it on the dais, we need to be planning further and less tilt wall and everything else, and I keep seeing the same thing happen over and over and over again. I think that the PCDC, the board, is in a direction where they need to make a decision on whether we're going to continue with tilt wall and where we're going to be in the next 20 years, or if we're going to start bringing in big corporations to offset our taxes like we keep talking about and we talked about in the past. And so, that's why I wanted to be a part of that to see if we could save that type of old model, or is it something that we needed to entertain to eventually for the city to take over
Yeah,
PCDC?
let me add something to what Councilman Ruiz is saying. It's not an endorsement or support. I know what his concerns are. One of my bigger concerns is that over the last 16 years, we've appointed members to the PCDC board we shouldn't have appointed. In terms of, I know that we are lacking for volunteers and people show up and we get excited because they want to serve. And that's great. I think that's very important. But I think we need to really evaluate the candidates that are not on the dais in terms of their background and their experience and I guess whether they're really going to make a difference for PCDC and the direction that Pflugerville is taking. Back to your point in terms of where PCDC is now, this is our responsibility to tell the board, hey, you guys are moving in the wrong direction. Either there's a lack of communication between council and the director of PCDC, the lack of communication between us and the board, and maybe they're not understanding what our philosophy and concept of envisioning of Pflugerville is, because it is very critical right now. I mean, we just, approved a bond issuance in the millions and millions of dollars. Does that mean anything to PCDC? Well, it sure as heck better. And if PCDC board members don't understand that, they sure as heck better, because it's not just about making decisions on the PCDC board. It's about making decisions that impact the community. And I understand your concerns with some of those areas, and I think some of the rest of us have those concerns as well. At least I hope we do. And
I think to your broader point, remember what we said about how this is going to set the rest of the year of this meeting.
here we go.
Honest conversation.
We had our appointment meeting. That was our last meeting when we all met, and I thought it was one of the most critical and best meetings we've had in years because, in all sincerity, and I'm saying this to the public, is that we were quite critical and crucial about who was on these boards, because one of the things that we have understood and realized that we hope everybody else does as well. This is not some small city. This is not some small town. We have major issues that will be creeping up that come with the growth and development of this community. And we've got to have the vision and the foresight in all different areas to make sure that actually goes and aligns with the opportunity for this community to grow and not stagnate. And if we have people on there who are antithetical to, frankly, government, as we've had before, growth, development, a variety of different things over there, that doesn't help. You want contrarians, to a certain extent in what you want to do to offer broad different viewpoints and ideas. But at the same time, if you're having an issue where from a council, you're setting a vision, and all of a sudden you're hearing from staff and other people that, hey, we're even telling these people or highly suggesting to your appointees to do some of these things, and they're saying, oh, no, we're good. Well, then, that's the feedback we hear at times. And so it's important that whoever's on these boards and commissions understands this is not just some thing to put on your resume. This is truly the future of this community at hand at a critical moment in a criminal junction in our community. So, yes, I understand exactly what you're saying regarding frustration and issues from that as well. And I give credit, honestly, to this council, Amy Madison, staff, everybody else, to get a course correction of what do we want, how do we broaden that vision. I can't wait till our retreat in 2 weeks to speak further about these things from there as well. It sounds to me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds to me that you're okay with trying to see how this looks right now, but if you're not happy with what goes on there, this year or something like that as well, you want true systemic changes at PCDC.
Absolutely, and I've said it from the beginning to a few of you, a couple of you, because didn't break a quorum, that if we have good quality candidates who put their name in, that this council feels are good quality candidates to make those tough decisions, I'm more than happy to not enter my name in there at this time and go forward with them, because ultimately, as council, we make the final decisions. I just, and so I'll leave it right there. So yes, I'm willing to keep it at 2 if we have some quality candidates, or that the council feels there are some quality candidates in this package. But if not, then yeah, I'll do like Doug and I'll fill in or take a position full time.
Well, you definitely have a Robin to your Batman on anti-tilt walls right next to you.
Mm-hmm. And I think the mayor and Jim are doing a great job. So that's no knock on them that they can't do this without me or that I have to be on there. That's why I'm saying I'm willing.
And I think it takes different perspectives. So I mean, and I've always appreciated yours, Councilman, and because sometimes you take us into the reality of the moment versus what we pretend it to be.
Ooh, I love that.
Okay.
That's a quote for
Birthday
tonight.
boy.
Yeah, I like that.
So Caesar, what I'm hearing from you is that we should evaluate the candidates that we have, determine, not fill 4 seats, right? Not fill 4 seats, but determine the ones that we feel are most qualified. If we have 4, we have 4. If we have 3, you're willing to step up
Absolutely.
and fill the gap. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, sir.
All right. With that said, let's start the interviews.
Right? Thank you. 100%.
Thank you.
Okay, getting that out of the way.
All right.
Doug, I'm saying 8:30.
It took us an hour to do the library interviews. What?
Yes, please.
Don't remind me.
I'm just letting y'all know.
Okay. I'm going to call candidates up, and you can have a few minutes to demonstrate your skills. And you may be subject to some questions. We did not prepare any Well, maybe some of us did, maybe some of us didn't. Is Victor Toe here? Okay. I guess he's not a candidate. Sorry, my packet is Sarah Burkhart.
I am.
Come forward.
I'm glad Victor's not here. I like to go first. Hi.
Hi.
Do you want me to give a pitch?
Please.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm a Pflugerville resident. I live in the Willow Creek neighborhood. My kids go to Brook Hollow Elementary School. I serve on the Brook Hollow Elementary School parent-teacher organization. I'm a fundraising chair there. I am deeply invested in this community. We've lived here for 5+ years now and plan to live here for many, many more years. Our house is big enough to have our 3 boys.
What brought you to Pflugerville?
A lot of things, council member. Most notably was the community, the diversity in the schools, the walkability, the proximity to both mine and my husband's work locations. And my interest in joining PCDC is very much about making sure that my kids don't have to leave in order to achieve the success that my husband and I have achieved.
Expand on that.
So I work in a global organization. I work at Dell. My husband has a small business, is very locally focused. So we're on kind of the opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of our work life. I'm not from the Central Texas area. I had to leave where I'm from, El Paso, to find the success that I've achieved because of the lack of economic opportunity that I experienced in El Paso. I would love for my kids to be able to walk to their first job, for example. Not forever necessarily, but I want them and their peers, not just my kids, but my kids and their peers to have meaningful opportunities to grow meaningful careers right here in their backyards. And it feels to me like the opportunities are somewhat limited. That's where my interest stems from.
Expand more on that. You said the opportunities are somewhat.
Yeah, I
limited.
see it all about service businesses being the vast majority. I'm a white collar worker. I'm not saying that that's the best potential career path, but I see fewer white collar opportunities in the Pflugerville area. From myself and my friends, we all leave Pflugerville to go to our white collar jobs.
I'm
And-
sorry, can I stop you right there? When
Yeah,
you say
sure.
you don't see many white collar jobs in Pflugerville, what do you actually mean? I
Yeah.
think I know what you mean, but
No,
you tell me.
it's a good question, fair to ask. So what I mean by that is the work that you're doing is mostly based on your knowledge and less so on the service that you might be providing another, whether that service might be beauty services or healthcare services. It's really more about the data, the content that you create on behalf of either yourself or your employer. Hopefully that helps.
That didn't make
No.
any sense to me. Yeah.
So when I can share, types of white collar workers, lawyers' offices,
No, I understand that
managerial
part.
roles. Yeah, managerial roles, marketing services, those types of things.
So I think what you're saying maybe, and
Yeah.
again, I don't know if that's what
No,
that we
please.
really don't have a significant professional foundation of white collar opportunities in the city of Pflugerville.
Not that I've seen, and it may be that I'm not specifically looking for them as I'm
True.
well employed, but yes, that's exactly what I would like to ensure exists here for a diversity of opportunities for our current and future population.
And the hard part is that let's use Round Rock and Georgetown for example. 84% of their work, 84% in Round Rock, 87% in Georgetown. The people that work there don't live there. And vice versa for people who live there
Don't
don't
work
work
there.
there. It's
Yeah.
a comparable. It's either off
Yeah.
by 1 or 2%. Same thing goes on in Pflugerville, absolutely, right there as well. So
I believe that.
it's, I mean, for example, you're going to Round Rock, and I mean, for Dell, that's what
I
happens.
go to
for us.
Austin,
and
yeah.
I guess they're coming back into. You're coming back to working there on site on a regular basis with that. It sounds to me, because you said El Paso, and I'm fairly familiar with El Paso. I'm a lawyer. We do a lot of work out there, so I'm fairly familiar with the economic development of El Paso. And honestly, I'm pretty impressed with some of the things that have come out there for that.
I haven't lived there in
for that area.
decades, so I can't speak to current
yeah,
capabilities.
But
Without revealing my age.
It's interesting to hear you say that your viewpoint is that PCDC should be creating, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, more white collar jobs for the community and service community, for opportunities for people to be able to work, play, live here as opposed to go somewhere else for jobs. Is that
I
right?
wouldn't say no. I wouldn't say that it should exist solely for pursuing.
I didn't say
white collar.
solely.
Yeah, I just want to be clear that that's where my hesitation is.
No.
coming from.
I'm talking about the.
I would like to
the-
have,
the
excuse me,
intent.
if I would like to have a diverse set of opportunities for careers for our current and future population in Pflugerville. I personally see a lack of white collar, and that makes me question whether we have a diversity of many different types of jobs. I see PCDC as the vehicle to attract employers to set down roots here in Pflugerville. So it's a bridge too far to go that PCDC is the career development. I agree, that's not the role of PCDC. But bringing the types of employers here who can offer a diverse set of employment opportunities for this area, as well as contribute revenue to the tax base, et cetera. Those are the things that are driving my interest.
So for me, one of the things that was very important for me when I first came on council was workforce development. And I saw that there is major opportunities for a variety of different job sets, including electricians, plumbers, variety of different things that doesn't necessitate a college degree, but you can make a substantial income, take care of your families that are
Yeah,
made
doesn't
available,
have
that
to be
were
white
incorporated
Yeah.
in other cities in and around us right there. Even when I was on the, I was a commissioner at the fire department, creating our robust and honestly well done fire department, and where we actually have that training coming through the school district and the fire department to train the firefighters who would be here in Pflugerville. That's what one with that. PCDC, to its credit, has done a really good job of plugging in with that. It's done the same thing, working with entities even outside of its abilities, like ACC, for example, to make sure that we actually have that training here for that. Because what we're seeing now is that I think we always get the stats for 80% of the jobs, less than 20% of the workforce now has the skill sets necessary for those jobs right there from that. I like that PCD does that. It sounds to me that you're saying is that that training wouldn't be precluded from what your vision is for this, but what you'd like to see is that they're doing this job training, but I'd also like to see the white collar training that goes with those job skill sets.
I would like to ensure that we have a diverse set of opportunities for the population base, that people don't have to, regardless of white collar. Again, my personal background is white collar, so that's what I'm most familiar with. But I would like to ensure that our economy has a robust and diverse set of career paths for our population. And I think the PCDC and the ability to attract employers, develop workforce development programs in a very dynamic and rapidly changing set of skills that will be required to be successful in the future, that's going to be the foundation for success.
Sir, what do you know about PCDC?
I'm not an expert at all. I saw one of the weekly city emails saying call for volunteers. So I feel more called to participate, and I have a business background and I have economic background. So you could quiz me, I will fail your quiz. I'm a quick learner, and I have a very strong foundation, so I'm confident I can get up to speed quickly.
And during the course of our last appointments, granted, I mean, we appreciate volunteers coming forward. I think, from my perspective, the appointment to the PCDC board is really not a learning position in my perspective. Although you could learn a lot, it might take you a year at least to do that. It takes a year at least to learn anything on city council, and I've been here 16 years. But I appreciate that. Thank you.
You did do PF 101 though.
I did.
Sarah, let me ask you this. I will say, first of all, you're speaking my language. One of the things I like to say, how do we fix Austin traffic, is to get our people out of it.
Don't drive in it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, keep them in jobs here in town. And that was a big part of what I tried to do over at PCDC, and we were very successful in doing that. Obviously, we've got a little more to go. But if I were to tell you that per capita, the citizens of Pflugerville hold more patents than Round Rock, Georgetown, Cedar Park, Kyle, Austin. What would you do with that information?
I would say most of those people probably work at Dell. So,
Okay. How would we capture, in your opinion, with your vision, how would we capture those people so that they don't have to leave town to go to work?
I think that's a huge challenge. I think we need to have employers here or SBA tie-ins that help those people who have great knowledge, great expertise, build their own companies so that they don't have to leave. I'm serious that, Dell has a very rich, patent library. Many of my coworkers live in Pflugerville. I'm confident that many of the folks who hold patents here are holding them on behalf of Dell. And I'm just speaking out of personal experience there. And they work there because of the benefits of working for a large employer. And we don't have a Dell in Pflugerville. Now, Dell is a unicorn, right? I wouldn't expect every small city of our size to have a Dell, but I think we should have more companies that could eventually grow into Dell as part of our population base, and that's what I think PCDC should be investing in.
And then give me an idea visually, driving down 130 or 45. What do you expect it to look like with your vision 20, 30, 40 years from now? What does it look like?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to go back to diversity with respect to different types of companies. I think it's as valid for a vibrant community that can be walkable, bikeable, etc. As much as office parks, things where a mass of people go to somewhat maybe less community oriented, but more globally oriented in terms of the workforce. I think that range really does a lot to increase the vibrancy of a population, because then you have people whose work is global in nature and is local in nature, and that combination really elevates the community, in my opinion. So I think that diversity of types of companies is really important.
So here's the interesting part about what you said. From what I heard, Doug focused on patents. So PCDC has done an excellent job of actually doing and our SEDS, our different studies of our city, and we actually have a disproportionate number of entrepreneurs. It's not just patents, but entrepreneurs, as compared to the rest of the greater Austin area here in Pflugerville. And actually, we became even more cognizant of this effect at COVID, because that's where COVID funding and the issues that came from that. And we found that very well. Some people who had their businesses, how they ran them from there as well, may not have had the same paperwork and other things setting up their own businesses. So Pflugerville's never had a problem with that. Additionally speaking, to your point, and this is something that Doug and I have a vision of, when I think of the city of Pflugerville, I think of 75. That's what I want 130 to look like. I would like 130 to look like 75. Up in Dallas, Plano, Frisco area, the specific area right there, with businesses going all through those specific areas in that quarter. And I think the council's done a really good job of trying to get a hold of that and work on those things. So it sounds to me that what's good is that you're really excited to get involved in the community. Have you attended a PCDC meeting?
No.
Okay.
I have one other question. I know PCDC and the city council and the city of Pflugerville are like this. Basically, PCDC is the city of Pflugerville. Of course, they have always been, as an organization, making contributions and investments in the community, especially infrastructure. More recently, they made a very large investment in the Downtown East project, which is, and I will just say, I think we're on the threshold of becoming an entirely different city than we've ever been. And I've been here since I was 4 years old. Okay, so I've seen it grow from 272 people to 100,000 people. So I've seen what's happened. I see what's going to happen in the future. What do you know about the Downtown East project,
Very
and how would
familiar
that? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I live right next to it.
Okay. And
And I'm thrilled about it, to be quite honest. I love the idea of that corner being leveraged in a way that contributes to the social fabric. It's right now it's empty. I would hate to see it just be used for.
do you feel it would be an economic driver for Pflugerville?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love the concept. I have nitpicks with elements of the concept that I won't go into here, but overall, I love it. I love infill. I love the fact that we have so much space here, even within our boundaries, to fill with a vibrant community, whether that's residences, businesses, and I think they need to be intermingled. Rudy, back to your point, I think we need to figure out how to get those entrepreneurs to a point where they can employ more people here. And I would be curious to know, what does that take? What have they told PCDC that it takes? And maybe you already have that information, but that's the kind of data that, I would think that we would need to build off of.
Okay, thank you.
So I just want to address one thing. On your application, you said that you don't have any potential conflict.
Not that I'm aware of.
And so I don't know, I'm trying to put that in context because I know that there's been your husband's been a big advocate. I know you're not your husband. My wife is certainly not, doesn't hold my views. And so I want to make sure that I make the distinction of separating those. There was a quote that I was looking back because it struck with me a year ago whenever it was made about multi-level office buildings and hotels backing up to residents on Meadow Creek would be detrimental and impact the quality of life. So there's this notion that office space is hard to build right now, but if there was an opportunity for white collar jobs to be built literally in your backyard, which again struck me when you said about the opportunities for your children, you want them to have opportunities in your backyard. It sounds like
Not
maybe you're at
literally
odds.
in my backyard. But
Literally in your
yes.
backyard, right? Words strike me
Words
weird
matter.
sometimes,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so it sounds like you may hold a different opinion than what.
As I mentioned, I have nitpicks about some of the elements of Downtown
Sure.
East, but as a whole, fully supportive. Some of the elements, I don't think that's a worthwhile discussion for here, but I'd be happy to expand on them if you believe that they are. But in general, I think we have to do something intentional there.
Right.
I would much rather do something intentional than just let growth happen haphazardly. I would much rather take that approach. I think we can work together to finesse some of the areas where we have differences. In general, I think we absolutely need to take an intentional approach there and elsewhere within Pflugerville.
I guess my more specific qualifying question would be, your motivation for being on PCDC is larger and more encompassing than just focusing on the project that happens to be in your backyard.
For sure. I'd like to pride myself on being able to see the forest and the trees. As I mentioned, our goal is to stay in the house that we're in. We think it's our forever house, if you're familiar with that term. Fully expect that our kids will graduate from Pflugerville High School and very likely go to school in Texas so that they can be close. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. Not a single one of us stayed in El Paso.
Right.
Not a single one. I don't want that to be the case for my kids. So yes, I have nitpicks with downtown East. I live in Pflugerville. I feel like I am a representative of Pflugerville. I actually have a patent at Dell. I'm one of the people that leaves, and I don't want that to have to be the case for everybody who lives here.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions?
What are your thoughts about bringing higher education to Pflugerville?
I think it's important to have a lot of educational opportunities. I won't get into the specifics of what happened in recent votes for community colleges. Overall, I think access, simple access to advanced education is very important. Whether that's solely through online capabilities or through on-campus, I happen to believe that on-campus experiences are fairly important, especially for some of the skills that will be in demand in areas like healthcare and being able to build a populace that can be employable in those areas. So I would love to see more education very easily accessible from the Pflugerville community. But I don't have a comment on any specific things that have come up in the past.
But do you think I've heard you talk quite a bit about white collar jobs and the lack of white collar jobs in Pflugerville. Do you believe that if we attracted a physical university campus to Pflugerville, that would create the kind of white collar diversity of jobs that you're talking about?
I think it would help. If I think about the recruiting that we do in my annual sort of staffing plans for a large, Fortune 500 company, our new staff is recent grads, right? We are not hiring at this point anybody else. It's really recent grads. So people with those fresh skill sets that are being taught the latest and the greatest, our population needs that. And I think it's symbiotic. Like it will help attract the universities attract the employers have employees who want to live in their communities, and then their kids go to the universities, and it's all a very symbiotic relationship. So I think it's all a part of that vibrant fabric. It has to be a component. I do think having UT close by is really helpful. Southwestern University, there's plenty of universities, but I think if a young person, or maybe even not such a young person, has an aspiration to go get educated in a way that helps them transition from maybe a current state to a future state, pay bands and knowledge that elevates their earning opportunities, I think they have to go out of Pflugerville right now, and that feels like a gap that we're not serving our population as best as we can.
Because they leave Pflugerville to get that
Yes.
education that lets
Yes.
them have that
And
white
I
collar
love what
job,
the
and they don't
schools-
come back.
And I love what the schools are doing. I participated in the Pflugerville ISD learning class. I can't remember what they call it, but I took it last year. And I love what they're doing with the workforce partnerships.
The upskilling.
Perhaps I don't remember exactly what it's called, but where they have the ability for kids to learn in high school, sort of that on-the-job type of learning. I think that's great. There may be more availability of that type of thing beyond elementary school, or beyond K through 12. I think that sort of thing is necessary for our population to be able to achieve the success that we'd like for them to achieve.
Well, Sarah, you piqued my interest when you said that you specifically denoting so you're talking about I'm assuming the ACC vote and community college versus a four-year college. The training that the school district does is because their availability that they're actually incorporated in ACC and able to have that workforce training and development and on-skill training for that. So when you're looking at the training that you're asking for, and you hear what Councilman Rogers asked you, a four-year college, you said that you think it would help, kind of like what you said with the kids or where they're graduating from. What about this? What about ACC? What about a community college? Is that something that you think that should be
Absolutely,
in
it's a
Pflugerville?
feeder
Incorporated in
to
that?
universities. I think I'm a big fan of community colleges. I think they're great springboards to either career or continuing learning, or skills that allow you to be employable. I absolutely think community colleges are a fantastic addition to a community.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Samantha? So you got all the good questions. You're ready, right?
Oh yeah, I made it look easy. How are y'all doing tonight?
Your pitch?
Okay, Mayor, City Council members, my name is Samantha Duran-Pisick. I have had the fortunate experience to serve on the PCDC board for the last year as a vice president and really enjoyed it. I hope to continue my service.
What demonstrative difference do you think you made on PCDC in that
Didn't
role?
let her finish her pitch, man. Just give it.
What do you
I'm
think?
sorry.
What significant difference do you think you made in that role in PCDC?
I think by leveraging kind of my experience in state government, I was able to kind of bring a different view and perspective to things. I worked for the governor's office doing tax policy for him. I've worked for the head of appropriations, so I've kind of seen the budget from the state side of things, working with billions of dollars, and
There's
now,
something that you're thinking about as you're saying this to us. What specifically comes to mind?
our big project on the east side, spending that kind of money and seeing what that's going to do. So I'm excited to see all of the community it's going to bring and kind of the attraction it's going to bring to our city, honestly.
Good deal.
It's something cool we get to say that we have now, or we're
Awesome.
working on. So, yeah, I just hope to be able to continue my service. So,
Well,
that's my pitch.
I'm going to ask you one of several questions, maybe. I don't know. Of course, having served on the board with you as a peer, so to speak, puts us in a different light. But I guess I'm asking as the mayor. And in terms of, and I know you should have the answer to this, in terms of economic development, I mean, we know that, as I've said earlier, we're hand in hand. And I think you've kind of gotten that message and understanding. Where do you think, I mean, in terms of economic development, from what you've heard sitting on the board and what you've heard as you may or may not have attended some council meetings, and especially this evening, where do you see economic development going for the city of Pflugerville? Not PCDC, but economic development for the city of Pflugerville.
I mean, we're trying to bring a lot of manufacturing jobs in, which is really great. I
But
think
is that where you see it going? I mean, that's what we're trying to do. But where do you see economic development going, heading for the future?
I think having a good mixture of the big jobs as well as having small businesses is really important to me. I like having both, like a diverse group there. I like being able to go to the downtown and see, your mom and pop shops, but also being able to have your, maybe not Dells, but larger companies to employ hundreds of thousands of people. So I think just a mix is what I see Pflugerville being able to do with the land and the talent that we have and we're growing.
Okay. Do you think Pflugerville is a small city?
Not necessarily. Texas is so large that we are probably a medium-sized city, if not growing to a pretty large-sized city at this point.
Okay.
I've known a lot of people that come from small towns, and when I hear they say hundreds of people, that's not even. We're not talking about the
Well,
same.
that's true. And as I've said, this community has grown over the last 50 years. And as I was driving Sunday out by the lake, the population side said 65 or 67,000. I thought, okay, well, that kind of makes sense, but that's not counting the ETJ and all the Black Hawk subdivisions, which are probably another 28 to 30,000 people. So we're really at 100,000 people. That's not a small
Very,
city.
no,
So,
not at all.
but
I think it confuses people when you see like we still have so much land in the area, in some areas, but no, we are a very
right.
growing and diverse area for sure. Large suburb.
And we get reminded every time we go to TML that we're not a small city. Every time we go.
So being a relatively new resident to the city, I think you bring a different perspective. How has your perception, if you will, of Pflugerville changed in the last 2 years?
I have to say it's much better than Austin. So I came from living there. I lived in a suburb of Houston, so I feel like it's not. It somehow feels small for how large it is, which I really like. Sorry, what was your question again?
How has your perception evolved over the last 2 years?
You know, it's changed. I had a baby, and I'm so excited. I've looked at like y'all's our education here, and that excites me. That makes me want to stay here. I love the parks; they're amazing. I live right across the street from a gorgeous park. I love being able to walk around and see the community just playing soccer. There's all different sports going on, and this is just pickup. So my perception has changed in the fact that I can see that in a walk. In a mile walk of my house, which is just something I did not think was going to happen living in a suburb of Houston. That's not really, a thing.
Right.
So I really like that, and I feel safe, which is something you can't say in a lot of places. Yeah, that's important to
I
me.
like your characterization. And my wife likes to call Pflugerville our big little town.
Yes, exactly.
It's got a lot of those amenities that you look for. But yet it still has that small town charm. We haven't shed that yet. So
No, and I don't think we will, even with our, exciting opportunities and things that we plan on doing. I think it's still going to keep that, charm with our downtown and everything we have planned. Yeah.
I agree, as long as we continue to be purposeful about it.
Yes. And that's something we have to think about with the infrastructure. If we want more and more people to come, is just how important it is to think about. We want more people here. How are they going to navigate here? Whether that be walking, driving, all of that. So it's something we have to think about with everything we're building.
How do you think, if at all, the city branding itself as the trail capital of Texas, how do you think that may or may not impact economic development?
Oh, I think that'll be really great. Honestly, I think there's a lot of people, especially in the central Texas region, that, they hear that and they're like, oh, I like that. I like, trails, being outdoors, able to, walk to a diner, just being outside is nice as long as we can and not in the summer. Texas.
Not when it's 100.
So, there's a few months where, maybe not so much, but I think that's another great thing we have at our parks is shade. It's awesome. When I heard we had like over 90% of our parks have shade, I was just, it's like, that's great. Our kids need that.
Yes, they do.
So I have a weird question. You've been in Pflugerville how long? 2 years, 5 years?
2.5 years.
How often do you get out and just drive around the city of Pflugerville, and what do you see?
I don't just drive around too often, but me and my husband love to go to the Pflugerville Farmers Market, so we do that as often. We're doing that weekly when that's in season, and I walk my neighborhood. I live in Highland Park neighborhood, so just walking around, going to Limestone
Let me
Center.
tell you why I asked that question.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's important to you, really important. Is that I lived in Old Town for 25 years. Great little cottage house downtown, 2 blocks from City Hall. And it was a place where if I was going to work or coming back to work or home or driving around the west side of 130, I knew what was going on. I knew every part of the city. I moved to the east side, on the east side of 130,
I can't believe we're considered these.
and yeah, and I hardly get around anymore. That's my fault. Okay. There are times when I do have to go to Austin on 35. Basically, I get to Austin on 130. I get to Round Rock on 45. I get to work on 45. I don't have a need to be on I-35, which is the main artery of Central Texas that tells you the story of what's happening in Kyle and Austin, San Marcos, Pflugerville, Georgetown, Round Rock. If you drive 35, you know what's going on. And the other day, I was driving around. Well, that's several times I've driven around because my mother lives off of Cameron Road, or actually 685 in Austin. And so I get out to go see her, pick her up, have her come visit. And so I have the opportunity to drive around. And I'm in shock and awe sometimes about the development that's happening. You find out how many charter schools are coming to your town, unbeknownst to you. You find out what construction developments are going on. I identified a gas line. I harassed the city manager about that was coming up and down 130. I thought, what is this pipeline running down 130? I didn't know what it was. I mean, I know what pipelines are, if they're blue or if they're gray or they're whatever. This one was weird. And they were trenching all along 130. I thought, that's going somewhere. Now, to you, that might not be of significance, but to me it was, because it tells me something's going on somewhere, okay? And so I did find out what it was. We still don't know why it was, but we're going to figure that out. And so I guess what I'm saying is that if you don't get out and drive around, if you don't get out to the lake or Weiss Lane, I just happened to be out, and I live on that side. I drove by the lake because I had an event out there, and beautiful fire department out there. I thought, wow, that blew my mind. And if you haven't seen that, you need to see it. What does that tell you? There's some vibrancy going on the east side. We're having to meet services, although that's an ESD project. We're meeting the services of the community. And how does that impact PCDC? It just tells you where we are and where we're going and what we're about. And that helps you make those decisions on PCDC.
To the mayor's point, I was going to say is that he's exactly right. Like, we will just drive around. Councilman Rogers knows that I've had plenty of time on the phone where I will drive in traffic specifically just to experience what we're hearing from our citizens, just to say, okay, what's going on as timing and everything else go from there. I live the furthest east out of everybody here, and I used to live in the country. And luckily the mayor and Councilmember Ruiz dropped me off the other day. Actually, Mayor Pro Tem did too the other day too as well. And that's no longer the case. I've got now about to be 3 subdivisions that are literally down the street on Seal Road from where I live now. They're coming in. We used to say that Seal Barbecue was out in the country. Seal Barbecue is less than a minute away from my house. And you do live on the greatest street ever made, I might add, first of all, right there in Portland. I love that street. I miss that neighborhood. I love that neighborhood completely with that. But you are now in a community where the traffic patterns, literally, as the mayor just said, people don't even have to experience what's going on one side of the town as compared to the other. You have 2 completely different traffic patterns. When I go to the office, I'll take Cameron. And I'll go down 973, and then I'll go into 290 and go where I need to go from there as well. Just completely avoid everything from that now. And that's where the future of the city is going. Because it's like you put it, I love the way you put it. And that's why he asked you a really good question. I love your answer to that, is that people think because we have all this green space, that people actually realize we have all this green space on the east side, that, okay, this is a small community and everything else. No, it's going to explode, and it's continuing to explode. When you have we're having 2 UFCUs. We have how many different shopping in various areas right there. There's stores and everything that are duplicating themselves, different parts. Healthcare entities right there. We're literally having doctors from the same system in 3 different areas around the city now. And that's just the way it is. Our HEB is one of the biggest in the state that's being built over there on the side of the road right there as well, and everything that's coming along from that. So what's I'm jealous about is that you're starting off, you just had your child, congratulations right there, and you're going to be able to see that growth and development that comes from there. But it really is amazing, and you do have, and this is where the mayor's so on point about what he's saying, is that you're in a position where you get to help shape that future. And it's not something that we just, poo-poo and feel right there as well, but, being able to see your vision right there is going to make the monster difference in what this city looks like.
Well, on the context of shaping the future, I just have to ask, where would you draw the line? And what I mean by that is, you've been on for a year or 2 years?
A year.
A year. Can you give us an example of where you just completely disagreed with the staff at PCDC on a certain particular project or something, and you with your own values, you drew the line and said, no, I can't in good conscience agree with this and I will not vote for it, or you stood up against it? Can you name one, or and if not, can you give us an example of something that would cause you to dig your heels in and say, no, I don't think that's right for Pflugerville?
I can't name of a time where I really dug my heels in. I think Amy did an amazing job really telling us about each project, making sure all of our questions were answered, diving deeper into the project itself. She brought us things that she thought were, great for Pflugerville, and, I commend her for that. So I don't really have one where I was absolutely no. There was, the one project that I was a little more hesitant on, and that was mostly due to cost, was the Downtown East project. I wanted to know a little bit more about the details of what was going to go in. $50 million is a lot of money. And that's coming from someone who worked with state budgets. So I just, I wanted to know a little bit more about it. And at the end of the day, I feel like it's going to be something that really helps the city draw more people in, make it feel like still a great community, but have these establishments that people can go to that are, proud of it. So, sorry, I don't have a specific example for that.
That's okay. I just didn't know if I can ask you because you've been on a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And we're driving in. We're talking about driving in, and not too long ago I was coming in from the east. Or south, I'm sorry, coming in, and the first thing I saw was all those apartment complexes, and it made me think of former Mayor Pro Tem Pena, who never voted on apartment complexes, and because he thought they were ugly, and he had multiple reasons why, but and that's on us. That's not on PCDC. That's on us. But I was kind of curious if there were, you heard me earlier mention tilt wall and my dislike for tilt wall. At what point would you be able to dig your heels in and say, we have enough of this. This isn't really bringing us any a good economic impact. It's not bringing us sales tax revenue. Let's not incentivize this. Is there, do you have a limit, or is it whatever Amy says?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, but it's up for discussion. I think, there's always questions to be asked, more facts to know. That's why, Amy and her staff have been really great about answering those questions and being able to have solid answers to back up the reason to bring those projects to us as a board. So, yes, I do have a line. I think, us creating more of a diverse base of businesses is important. Like I said, the very beginning was just having, your big companies that can hire hundreds of people, but also having your mom and pops, making that big little city feel. It's big, but it's also small. So,
yeah, I guess my one ask would be, if council sees fit to reappoint you, figure out your line.
Absolutely.
And dig your heels in and challenge staff,
Definitely.
not our staff. Their staff.
No, I do think this is a partnership, and I think if anything,
And I think it's okay to challenge staff. Don't feel that, it's like, when you raise your kids, I'm not their friend, I'm their parent, okay? And so you're on that board. They're not your friend, you are their parent.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to step up to be more discernful in terms of whatever the projects are, whatever the questions may be, because it's really you that is impacting the future of Pflugerville. It's not the staff. they're bringing a lot of good ideas. Our staff brings a lot of good ideas, and some of them that are not very good. Okay, and so that's all right. You know?
Did anyone else hear what Serena said?
Anyway, I'm sorry. I just need to convey that,
No, I completely agree, and I will make sure to find that line.
and I'll be watching.
And you're looking for a reappointment to place 7, correct, ma'am?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The tempo is not getting any quicker here.
I said 8:30.
Serena has to leave at what, 4?
Oscar Mitchell.
Oh,
You had to
see,
leave at
these
4 one time for the meeting.
Yeah. Oscar, you've really been in Pflugerville for 37 years?
Yes, I moved here for IBM out of college, and I always jokingly tell people when we moved here, the population sign said 759. And Renee and I said, now it
See,
says
you and I know
761.
what we're talking about, right?
Right.
And if you didn't get your groceries off of, where'd you say? You were out of luck.
Yeah, but Burnett and Wells Branch, if you went that far, you were.
you literally
Too
are.
too far.
Oscar, you've been around for a long time on a variety of different boards. You've done an excellent job. Talking about discernment and pushing back, also working with staff to make demonstrative change has been great. So I'm going to ask you, what do you believe you bring to PCDC that's not there now that'll make demonstrative difference in its vision to help shape the future of Pflugerville?
You know, I think similar to Parks and Rec and planning and zoning, I bring a unique perspective, I think. You know, my background, as you can read, my background is kind of strange and unique. I'm an engineer, 10 years at IBM, started and sold several high-tech companies. When my wife Renee wanted to have a little land, we developed Magnolia Ranch. And by the way, when we developed Magnolia Ranch, that was the boonies.
Oh, I know.
Right?
I know.
We knew growth was going in that direction.
I drive past it every day.
So I think I bring a unique perspective, you know, from what it takes to start a company, what it takes to grow a company, what it takes to, you know, at Parks and Rec to enable an environment, you know. I think some of the work that was done while I was Parks and Rec led us to this trail capital thing. Some of the things we did, planning and zoning, has created an environment where people want to come and develop and what have you. So I think that's the main thing, is this unique perspective, unique background that I think will help, you know, grow Pflugerville further.
Well, I'm going to ask the similar question that I asked Samantha in terms of economic development for the future of Pflugerville, the vision. I mean, if you've driven around town, I believe you have, is that you see all the development, all the construction, you see all the multifamily apartments, you see a lot of things going on. And I mean, even on Pflugerville Parkway more recently, it was about time something happened there, and I'm glad it did. That may generate some additional development in that particular area. And so what in terms of what your vision for economic development, and maybe economic development's not really the word that would apply, but in terms of how do you see that vision for Pflugerville's future? I mean, what is it going to do for us and how?
One thing I do see, just as a comment, I sort of liken it back to the 80s, because there's a lot of, and maybe there's a significant demand for it, but there's a lot of multi-family development coming online that I'm concerned that, is that, you know, sufficient? I mean, not sufficient, but is that overkill like it was in the 80s when, you know, every developer went in and articulated a reason why you needed more development, and then you end up having 15, 16, 20 developments up and down Wells Branch, and that's set vacant forever. Yes, good question. I guess the the real question, the answer to that question would be, from a technical standpoint, from a technology standpoint, yes, different jobs and different employers are needed, but I think things are going to change. Things are changing just a little bit. There's technology coming out that's going to change the way we work, to change the way you know, the types of jobs that are needed. So there's I don't know how to answer the question fully, but things are changing differently, and I think having technology and other things come to bear will, you know, change how Pflugerville needs to grow. The fact that we have a significant entrepreneurial base here, that's potentially huge. The conversation about ACC, now this is probably not a positive standpoint, but I was a little perturbed that ACC is in Pflugerville. You know, my daughter goes to UMHB, pre-med major. When she was at home for the summer, she wanted to take a course. It was ridiculous. The hassle was ridiculous. The cost was outrageous. So, you know, even I saw some opportunities to take courses at ACC, and it's just, anyway, so that's probably not a popular stance, but anyway, so.
No, I get what you're saying.
We've heard it.
Oscar, there was a question on the form here, and you gave the what, but I'm kind of interested in the how. So the question was, what do you think the city's primary need in establishing economic development strategy is? And you put to figure out what type of businesses we need to attract, and what do we want our city to be known for, and how do we want to grow our city? So let me turn your answer into a question for you. What types of businesses and or companies do we want to attract, and what do you want Pflugerville to be known for?
Okay. Well, I would say that the type of businesses are based on the vision and desire of you guys, the council. That's one thing. But the other, I mean, Pflugerville, just now, I've had the opportunity, other companies that have wanted me to move to other places of Texas to do certain things. I find Pflugerville a very comfortable place, a very easy place to live and do things. I have to admit, you know, I'm involved in a startup, helping a startup, and they're in South Austin. I hate that drive, although I'm probably in trouble now. But that is, you know, I'm going over across every potential major thoroughfare to get to South Austin. I hate that, where it could be done here. So that's the first thought should be.
You're going to recruit them to move up here?
Oh, definitely.
Well, tell me, based on that, recruiting them to move up here, what kind of space do they need? What do you believe is appropriate for PCDC to incentivize, to encourage, to what does it look like to help a company like that startup move here?
The ones that I'm involved in are medical startups, so they need some wet lab space and research facilities, that kind of stuff.
And is that tilt wall? Is that high rise? Is that standalone building?
All of the above.
Just
depends
Just
on
wet lab?
Yeah.
Jim, did I come close to answering your question? No.
Very much so. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Ruiz, you have any questions?
If PCDC contributes to our schools, does that create a conflict of interest?
No.
I want to just
Oh, for those that
just
don't
throwing
know,
that out there in general.
Yeah.
You know,
for
yeah,
the benefit of the public, my wife is chairman of Pflugerville School
Yeah.
Board, Renee Mitchell. So
I just want to make sure. Because
I
I know
don't-
I
I
just
don't
thought
think
about
so.
that recently, and I know that PCDC does contribute money to the ISD, and the board votes on it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you follow everything that your wife says?
Huh? Okay.
The,
Be careful how you answer that.
No, I mean, we served together, and on planning and zoning, and Oscar, has shown that he can dig in and voice his opinion. So I'm not concerned with any of that. That was
We've
something
had
I
things
thought of.
with-
Wow, that's fair.
Yeah.
We've
and-
had issues come before planning and zoning that were school board related. I think that's a non-issue.
Yeah, okay. Just want to make sure legally that's a non-issue, and, yeah. But I'll say, yeah, there have been times Oscar voted no, and I'm looking at my notes like, why did he vote no? Yeah, so, yeah.
Any other questions, council? Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mitchell, you have a lot of experience with working with a variety of tech startups, and you mentioned you're currently working with a medical startup. What do you think that you would bring to the PCDC in terms of ability to bring new companies to Pflugerville that we don't already have on the board?
Good question. It depends on the area, right? I mean, of course, from a technology standpoint, you know, I feel confident on being able to call BS on what's being told. Right? That was kind of my career at IBM, telling executives, you know, the hard story, so that's one thing. I mean, there are, it goes back to a previous answer. And I don't know the answer to it, but there are jobs and companies and forms of companies that we don't understand today that are going to come about real soon because the technology is driving things. There's certain, as everyone knows, there's certain jobs that are going to go away, like the horse whip, right? With technology. I was helping someone do some research not long ago, and was quite frankly blown away by what some of the technology that allows you to do these days. It's quite impressive. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but.
So would you say, I want to restate your answer, and you tell me if I get it right. You bring an ability to evaluate potential tech companies that has insight beyond what laymen or economic development professionals might ordinarily bring to the table.
Yes, and high tech and low tech. You know, one of my startup companies was a very low tech company. So it's the gamut of how to, you know, there was a gentleman I worked for at IBM who had a knack for knowing how to get the train on the track, but not the train into the station. So the possibility of having that background of being able to get things started, get things going, and know what needs, to anticipate what people are going to need, what companies are going to need, whether they're high tech or not. I think I bring that to the table.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. So I've got three more. Jeffrey Thompson.
No.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council members. I'm Jeff Thompson, and I'm sure you've got to read my application, so I think you know some of the particulars. To give everybody in the room a bit of a summary, I bring a lot of direct experience to this particular opportunity, having had 5 years in service on the board at PCDC. I bring a total of 8 years of board experience to this, with the additional 3 as president of TERS 1, where we're building infrastructure, you know, through the city to support primarily the Pecan District project right now. I bring I have a master's degree in economic development and entrepreneurship led by Dr. David Summers, specifically around regional development and how we develop communities and metropolitan areas and how they collaborate with each other in order to further economic desires and goals. So I think that type of education coupled with my experience can help us at least, evaluate the opportunities before us so that the council can be empowered to make the very best selection.
So Jeff, why you're on TERS? You're chair. You're still president of the TERS board.
That is correct.
Okay. So, and you've already been on PCDC, correct?
That is correct.
Why are you asking to return back to PCDC?
I'm asking to come back because I know that PCDC needs people who have experience and who have the capability to deal with complex and sometimes difficult scenarios. I've been in the city since 2005. In June, it'll be 19 years. Heavily invested here. All three of my sons are Hendrickson graduates. It's absolutely vital and critical that we recognize the inflection point our city is at right now. We've hit 6 digits in terms of population, as the mayor points out. We've got rapid expansion going on, not only in Austin's MSA, but specifically in Round Rock, as well as in Hutto. What we do and the decisions that we make in these next 2 years can be crucial to whether we're leading the effort or if we're trailing behind.
So let's use your example. Let's talk about 973. 973, obviously, you know that Campo's doing a specific study on the corridor studies, and that's one of the main corridors they're looking at. And looking at that at expansion, you know that when 973 ends, it ends in Taylor, right by Taylor High School, and there's a small little plant from South Korea that's down 973 too as well. Out there. What in your vision do you see from a PCDC standpoint can be utilized and leveraged to make sure that, as you said, we're leading the charge in the vision of 973 as opposed to following what our neighbors are doing down there or not doing?
Yeah. It's important that we develop and expand on the capabilities that complement those efforts. We've got our 3D printing industry cluster here that we've had for a while. That's a very advantageous thing. I'd like to see that even multiplied out further to provide those specialized services and capabilities that semiconductor needs, or other industry or other manufacturing or even information technology sectors that would be interested in coming into the city.
What are your thoughts about land banking?
First, tell me what you mean by land banking.
Okay. I was like, wait a minute, you've been on TERS. So, for one of the big things, one of the things that actually helped explode PCDC, oftentimes, the average citizen in Pflugerville is 5 to 7 years, so something gets lost in translation, so they're not aware of where things were to where things have gotten. But, PCDC did a tremendous job of establishing what would be an I-30 or 130, and actually in the Commerce Center right there over there. Mm-hmm. By keeping that land, working development, making sure to be able to go ahead and use the different pieces, which ultimately developed to what it is today. The thought process is to go ahead and work with your economic development corporations to look at pieces of land opportunities that may be viable, maybe not now, but in the future for the growth and development of the city. But at the same time, make sure that you're able to go and do so in a constructive, conducive way for the growth and development of the city that's congruent with that. That's what I mean by land banking.
Yeah. We actually had success with that. The 20 acres that we had was thought to be almost unbuildable. And in fact, it got turned around to where we had a large segment of it that was buildable.
Absolutely.
And a few, jumps with the city of Austin in terms of getting emergency services and a road cut in. But land is going to be of primary importance. The physical space is the one thing that's constraining everyone. We can always build more knowledge space. We can have more cloud. We can do all these things, but land is something that is finite. And so I think having an ability to influence what goes on property, especially in our area, being able to direct the types of things we want to occur in that property is of paramount importance.
So what I'm hearing from you, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you would like PCDC to look at controlling the pieces on the chessboard to help influence what demonstrative would be in that area.
I would probably want to modify that a bit to say, I'd like to make sure that PCDC can provide every available chess piece to the board.
Yeah, I would think, from your metaphor, less about the pieces and more about controlling the squares.
How you please.
Oh, you were trying,
Yeah, that's
you were
what-
giving him a layup?
Yeah, yeah.
You were giving him an easy one?
Let me
on
take you in a
terms.
slightly different direction. Because you're the president of the TERS board currently. I want to ask a question first of Charlie and then to you to follow up on this. Charlie, there's not any legal impediment to him being president of the TERS board and on PCDC,
I
correct?
was actually, at the end of your interview, I was going to ask Mr. Thompson if he would be willing to resign his position from the TERS board to be on the EDC board, because the TERS board is an office, and you cannot hold an office and be a member of a board it's a disqualifier under our charter provision. So he would have to resign his position on the TERS board in order to be on the Economic Development Corporation board. Good question.
Okay. Well, that answers my follow-up question. But it leads me to a new follow-up question. Why do you want to change from the TERS board to the PCDC? And is the TERS board going to move along fine without you?
Yeah, did you know that you'd have to do this?
Let's see, how can I put this best? What's facing the PCDC is a larger scale and a lot more variety than what we see in TERS 1. In TERS 1, it has a much more focused effort. I think there's a number of people that could step in and effectively run that organization and see it through the next 2 and 3 phases of the development for Pecan District or potentially any other work that comes up. What you think about in terms of what may face PCDC, and I think it's important to remember, it's called the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation, not the Pflugerville Economic Development Corporation. So there are definitely aspects around community development that are going to be coming across that will involve, of course, economic development aspects. Those are exactly the kind of things I really do enjoy. I joined the TERS because the former TERS presidents reached out to me and basically asked me to do this. They were at a critical point, and he didn't want the thing to fall apart. I didn't want it to fall apart. So I resigned my post there to take that position with the TERS. We've now had it going for 3 years. You can see the residential that's already there. You know, COVID and a few other things have kind of thrown a wrench in some of the development we want to do on the office and in the retail side. But all in all, it is headed in the right direction. Presidium's a great partner to work with, and we've had a lot of success there. I think PCDC is a place where perhaps I can bring my talents even better use for the city and for my
Did you say
fellow
Presidium's a
citizens.
good partner?
I'm sorry?
Presidium's a good partner?
In my experience, Presidium's been a very good partner in Pecan District.
I just want to make sure I heard you.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I got to the point there. PCDC can be, I think, a much better use of my talents and a way to have a much more positive impact and broad impact.
Okay.
Council, any other questions?
No.
All right, thank you, sir.
Don't really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The questions are getting shorter. Darrell White.
Well, these are people we know.
Well, that doesn't mean we can ask tough questions, right?
Oh, well, we keep asking.
All right, Rudy, let him get going and then stop him.
Yeah, yo, this is a hot bench.
For those of us who don't know you, Darrell, you may give a pitch if you don't mind.
Okay. Good evening, council. I'm Darrell White. I've been in Pflugerville since 1993. I've served on the city council for 6 years during that period of time. Also served on the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation. And don't hold it against me, but the 6 years that I was on the city council, I was also on the city council with Mayor Gonzalez. So we know each other pretty well. And what I mean by that is just our thought processes, our vision for the city, and where we think not just the vision, but the practicality is in getting things accomplished. I've also served on the PCDC with Councilmember Weiss, and for a short period of time with Councilmember Rogers. And the rest of it, I guess, is pretty much laid out in my bio and the information I provided on the application.
So, Darrell, I know that you've recently been attending council meetings and PCDC meetings, and obviously an indication that, you know, you're a longtime community resident here, and I think you have a vested interest in Pflugerville, and you know what the heartbeat of Pflugerville is. I will say, I believe you do. And based on where we are today, of course, you have seen the transition from 16 years ago to today in terms of development, of growth, construction, commercial development, residential. I mean, residential has exploded, so you've seen it all. I think you pretty much aware of that. So taking all of those elements, and as I said, we're kind of in the same boat in a way. Is that how do you see the future of Pflugerville in terms of how PCDC economic development can play an even more assertive role for visioning Pflugerville?
Okay, thank you for the question. In my involvement with the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation, as well as council, and for the benefit of the council, my initial involvement with the community was serving on the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation, because I saw that as where the most direct impact could be had by an individual, whereas the city council, serving as a policy-making body, and also the control of the Pflugerville Community Development Corporation, would see the big picture. PCCC would get in and serve as a catalyst. So this is where I'm going with this. So that from the PCDC standpoint and making things happen, it's like going back and doing the healthcare initiative like we did to set things up for Baylor Scott and White to finally come in 10 years later, even though it just drove all of us crazy that it would take that long. But in doing the analysis, we gained credibility with some of the other communities within the region, because one of the issues that I think many people within our community don't realize is that we're surrounded by some really good places that people would love to live. But what we know is that this particular spot is really precious. One, because of the people that have been living here already. Two, the people who have been moving in. But three, the opportunities we have to grow as a city far better than other cities that are surrounding us to our east and north. Not the very far north, but just immediately to the north. So this idea of what PCDC can do is working through our process of understanding where the potentials are, the realistic potentials within our region that we can tap into, and put in position the things that need to be in place to make the things actually happen. So whether it's getting things started with the 130, like when you and I first went over to Travis County and sat down with them to even talk about the Sunlight Near Road and what was going to happen there and the kind of response we got, we figured out a way to work through that. And we see with the 130 Center what we have today. We have other issues that PCDC can do as we go to the 973 and beyond. And with the New Sweden water facility, you and I know what happened there. That was more of a city issue, but it was what was given, if you will, to the PCDC to look to the future, to what could be done, whether it be with the solar farm or the other things that are happening out there. I think in many cases, though, a lot of folks, they're more short-sighted than what we really have the potential for here. And that's not a negative. It's just that we are blessed with especially the land that we have to our east and the way things are set up to have more control over what's going to happen than most communities. Most communities are going to be, again, I'm not talking Hutto, those immediately in that direction where it's still wide open, Taylor. But when we go to the west, those cities, they're dealing more with infill than they are with true greenfields to grow from. So that's the catalyst that I think PCDC will serve in identifying what those need to be, working with the council on what direction the council sees with those particular items. Because several of the things that I mentioned, whether it be the 130 Commerce Center or the healthcare initiative, those were all things that were determined by the council to be important things that we would like to see happen. the PCDC was the part that got into it and actually made it come about.
Let me ask another question as you were expressing your thoughts on that. I know recently, and I'm sure you're aware of, we see a lot of development around us, like in Hutto and Georgetown, Wilco, and when we see that online, it's like, oh, what happened? Where were we? Why didn't we, cash in on that project? Well, maybe we couldn't. Okay, but I guess where I'm going with that is, as we're seeing a lot of these opportunities around us dropping into place, and maybe we're not seeing some of that. What can we do, or is it, are we dropping the ball on that?
Yes. In many cases, when you see it coming out of the ground, you're already 4 years, 5 years, 8 years behind. I'll give, again, the healthcare example. When we went into that in 2007, we did it in a very methodical way. We went through the proper due diligence. We had the facts. And then we aggressively went, and when I say aggressively, it was a PCDC as well as the city, went to the various healthcare organizations, got their feedback. But the point is, they understood at that point, one, that we were interested, but two, we actually knew what we were talking about. So many times, unless we do the proper due diligence, we have great ideas, we have the best of intentions, but we're not really going to be very successful. And if we do have success in some cases, that's fantastic, but it was just, we happened to be at the right place at the right time. And I'll take those every time, folks. I'm not turning those down. But you have to create some opportunities, and that's what we try to do. And again, 130 is a great example. There's a lot of tremendous work that's been done by many PCDCs as well as City Council making that thing happen, but it has to start somewhere. And I think where we are right now, as you were talking about what's happening in the other surrounding cities, well, 40 miles to our east, there are things that are happening right now. Because why? The cost of land.
Exactly.
It's already been mentioned by several of the other people who were set up here today about, what some of those issues are. And that's real. And that's why I'm here. That's why I've been attending the meetings, both PCDC and City Council. I want our city to be highly successful. I don't want to be successful. All cities are successful. I want to be highly successful.
Excellent.
That's it. Oh, man. This is what. I know it's. He knows. I say this all the time. I mean, that's exactly it. Is that we have an opportunity where it's a critical moment where, listen, we can go ahead and be okay batting 250, or we can actually go ahead and make a demonstrative difference in what this community is going to look like. And, I think what you said it best is that, what we get to define that. But if we're not doing our due diligence, if we're not doing the work, we're not doing the things that are necessary, the front end, from a football standpoint, analogy, the blocking and tackling, at the beginning to do that, we're not going to be able to go ahead and have that 60-yard pass down the field. We're not going to be able to go have that robust run or that return for a touchdown. We have to make sure that we see the vision now, and it's cool, as you said, things pop up, cool, it goes from there. But I love the example you used for the hospital, is that you set the vision now, and you keep going with it to go ahead and know that this is a long-term thing that you're trying to make a difference for and you're okay for. And I think that, honestly, as a council, it's something we've been saying for years now.
Yeah. And
Well, I was going to say real quick that, first off, thank you for your honesty answering the mayor's question, because, you were right off in the beginning. You agreed with the mayor that, no, we're not doing enough. On that note, I'll ask, and I certainly appreciate your perspective coming from council and coming from PCDC, because we have some former council members who like to bash us, even though they know how hard it is to be up here. And you don't do that. I haven't seen you do that, or I haven't heard of it. Actually, you've quelled some of that. But on that note, where would you break away, or where would you try to guide staff at PCDC to stop doing this and start doing more of this? Like the mayor says, we're missing out on opportunities. Sometimes those opportunities are going to come and we just get overlooked. They don't want to come to Pflugerville for whatever reason. But what can you do to push that, to encourage PCDC staff to stop doing this and focus more on this?
Okay. In all due respect, That's missing the point.
That's missing the point?
That's missing the point.
Well, I thought that
If
sounded like
we-
a lot like what you were getting to.
No, sir, not at all. What I'm getting to is the PCDC board, just like the city council,
Uh-huh.
serves as, they're establishing the policy. They're working with the executive director of the PCDC on what it is the city needs to be doing. And where the PCDC comes in is we're the arm, that marketing piece that begins to make it happen. When I say marketing, I'm just not talking about selling the city. I'm talking about the whole mechanism, doing the proper studies, the analysis. Again, I don't want to beat the healthcare thing to death, but that was one of the best examples that we had early on where we went in and actually did the due diligence so we could get the credibility and respect with the cities as well as the larger businesses in our area, that we really meant what we were talking, that we wanted to have this happen, and we knew what we talked about, and we were willing to accept the fact that at the healthcare piece, even though we wanted it badly, where we had an increase availability of healthcare facilities within our community for our citizens, it was too early. It was not the right time. We didn't take that as the answer. We understood it was the reality. So when it comes to PCDC, if we see issues with we're not going after the right things or what are we getting here, that, and the other, it's not a matter of challenging that staff position person. It's a matter of, do we have the right staff person? And in all due respect to the city manager, from the standpoint of the city council council's primary responsibility is identifying who that chief executive is going to be leading our city and in establishing the policies and other things supporting that chief executive on the accomplishment of the goals that the city needs to achieve to have the highest quality of life for our citizens. So
I don't know if I'm understanding you correctly, so because I almost feel like I'm disagreeing with you in my mind right now. So what you're saying is, you believe, possibly, it's the board's responsibility to support the staff
No.
on what, that's almost what it sounded like.
no.
No.
Okay, so can you clarify that?
What I'm saying is that the staff is doing their job.
The staff is already doing their job.
They're doing
And
their
I'm
job.
sorry if I'm speaking loud. I don't have my own old
Matter of
man
fact,
hearing device.
No,
in
no,
today,
no.
so,
I appreciate your.
Yeah. So
appreciate
you're
the
saying
volume.
already the staff is already doing their job. So what is your role?
If the staff is already doing their job, my role with PCDC on the board is to make sure that we're following through with the direction the city council's established as to where they want to see us grow as a community, geographically, industry, whatever it may be. And also as part of the PCDC, we're assisting the city council in identifying those things. Because at any point, if we are at cross purposes, in other words, the city council thinks it should be X, and we think it should be Y at PCDC, Y does not exist. The city council's X is all that matters.
Okay. All right. So, and you're willing to be an enforcer if necessary with staff on PCDC?
I have.
You have? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not
Yeah,
questioning
no,
you.
no, no,
I'm
I'm just
asking.
saying,
Yeah. Yeah.
your point is proper
Uh-huh.
in that, as a board member, what are you doing? And there are a lot of boards, and I'm not saying this is a PCDC, but there are a lot of boards, whether it be with cities or businesses, where you have members on the board that either don't understand the board process, or they're part of a school of thought, which does exist, where they just think, well, I'm, like it's been mentioned here earlier, I want to be on a board to get something by my name so I can go to the next thing. What the
Okay.
PCDC board should have, and what the city council does have, are individuals that say, we want to make something happen for our community.
And Darrell, I think that's a good message. And let me just make this comment because I think it's significant. Is in my past association with Mr. White on council, and we run into each other every once in a while, and he is involved in the community. When he talks about due diligence, he's not kidding about due diligence. He studies the item, the project from A to Z. I have seen that.
And so to give you an example, I agree, Victor, I'm glad you're touching on this. I thought the packet information that was prepared for tonight's PCDC meeting was excellent. It had the backup in the bylaws, it had the details of what we're going to do. you've got to do your homework.
Right, exactly. And similar to Mayor Pro Tem Weiss, who's a data-driven member, and I appreciate that because that's important on this council. So I'm just again reiterating that
Yeah.
I understand what you mean by due diligence.
Darrell, could I ask you a question? I want to first say I'm really glad you're here tonight, and I was really excited when I learned of your interest in applying to serve once again on the PCDC board. I know you've been very involved. I know you've been engaged in the community and attended quite a few meetings. Can you tell me, is there any one specific example that stands out to you where the PCDC board, and I want to reiterate that, the PCDC board has made a decision that maybe you don't agree with, that you think they got wrong and that you would have done differently? Put you on the spot right there.
See, I was going to ask him that, but I didn't want him to
Yeah.
be critical.
That's called
Hey, I don't want to hear anyone talk about the lawyers saying these questions.
moving into the reality of the moment.
Okay, so at a PCDC meeting recently, there was a discussion about the sidewalk that goes up by the water park. And understanding from the history of the Mellenbrook track, I thought there was probably 30 minutes worth of discussion spent on that probably wasn't really necessary. And so my point is, the outcome of that, when it goes through and all the pieces fall into place, if that night in reading the material and listening to the consultants, we'd have just gone and done that interim step because there's the bigger picture, it would have saved everybody a lot of time. Plus, then in executive session with the bigger issue items, you'd been able to spend more time. So, you asked.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. I believe I agree too.
So Victor understands from our past dealings, if I agree with you, I'll be your strongest supporter. If I don't agree with you, I'll address it with you.
You'll let us know why.
I will address it appropriately, and we'll all get better with it. But if you ask me directly in public, get ready for the answer.
All right.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I can respect that.
Darrell, I've had the privilege of serving with you on our charter commission. I've always appreciated your insight and comments. Where do you think would be a better investment of PCDC's focus on landing the whale or bringing in the supporting services that support the whale that someone else pays for down the road?
We have to do both. Taylor's doing a great job with this. They've got Samsung coming in. Taylor and Hutto both were already working with the suppliers even before the announcement was happening with Samsung. So what we have to do is basically go upstream to where we think it's going to go, and then go the other direction, figure out what we have to do, put things in place so we can get the result.
So along those lines, let me ask you a question about that because you brought that up. Williamson County, the Commissioners Court, has done a phenomenal job of leading that effort. You know, they're the ones who were able to corral and get folks together, both in Taylor and Hutto, and now they're spreading to some of the other areas right there as well in Georgetown to help lead an effort saying, hey, listen, we have a vision where that small little plant from South Korea will come down here. Let's go ahead and work together on that. What do you see as our role, and then through PCDC, working with our county commissioners right there to be able to go and help make demonstrative economic change?
Okay, so we're a two-county city. We're in Williamson County and Travis County, predominantly Travis County. We're getting a bigger foothold in what is in Williamson County. We need to be as much a player in Williamson County as Taylor and Georgetown and Cedar Park and all the rest. That's going to happen at some point in the future. It's not really happening now because we just don't have the mass. We don't have the if you will, the population to get the attention of the Williamson County folks to the level we should. In Travis County, we're the second largest city in Travis County. Even when we were small, we were the second largest city in Travis County. And we're at a position now, because of our footprint, going all the way over to 973, and to have the population base, that we've got to be a city that has full services, that we support just like any other community of 100, 200,000 people. And we're missing out the point. So we're talking about the future. So why does that matter? It matters because of the industries we're trying to attract. Because the bigger we look as a city and all the services we provide and control directly, we have more clout with those various industries that are going to come in. Not the ones that are already here, but for the ones that are looking. They're going to be looking for those cities that have that depth.
So
The only thing I would disagree with you on is that I got to give Commissioner Bowles and I got to give our staff a lot of credit because what's done with the recent bond package in Williamson County has helped fix, as I call it, the Bermuda Triangle issue that we have right over there where near where Councilmember McDonald and his folks up there from that.
Yeah.
So those relationships and growth have happened from there, but you kind of answered my question, but didn't really answer my question.
But I'm
So
talking 15, 20 years
yeah,
ago.
and so what I'm saying is this: is that what do you see as our and just like you said, you get bigger, we're going to work from that. What do you see that we're not doing now in working with those commissioners to be able to make a demonstrable difference from an economic development standpoint, either from this DICE or through PCDC?
I don't know enough yet. That's why I want to be
Okay.
in PCDC.
That's fair. Okay.
Well, and Darrell, I like the fact that you said that we have to appear bigger. I mean, obviously we are bigger, but we have to certainly project that appearance, and we shouldn't be marketing ourselves as a small city.
Correct. And let me just put it this way. We have incredible people here in our community. And I think the more success we have with our various boards and with the council, it's going to cause, if you will, the level of interest to rise within our city from the citizen standpoint, to be more involved because everyone wants to be part of a winner.
Come on.
Love that.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Sure.
And finally, Anita Hussein, you have all the answers now, because
Hopefully it'll be
and
quick.
you've probably changed your script about 10 times.
In the last
Okay,
hour and a half.
you've been on before. Why do you want back?
I went back because I really do think my first 2 years was a learning curve. I'm just getting to understand what economic development is, what Pflugerville can be, and I want to be a part of that. So I served one term. I've only lived in Pflugerville for less than 4 years, served one term, and I've been on the steering committee for the CEDS 3.0 this last fall. So to preemptively answer a few other questions that might come up, I have been the sole dissenter a couple times on some votes.
Oh, we've heard.
I think that
Can you tell us which? Like, give us an example.
sure, I was really early onto the board, and I think the conversation with GT distributors had been pretty far along when the vote came to the board, and I did descend on that for moral grounds because they do sell weapons. And my parents are veterans, I have young children, and I just couldn't support bringing a weapons distributor into my community.
And did you just dissent, or did you voice it out to the?
I did voice it
Okay,
out, but
all right,
again,
yeah.
like I said, I think the questions that I had emailed Amy were a little too late in the game of the conversation because I joined the board too late.
Okay.
So it was a timing thing. I think it didn't make much of a difference. It passed. There was a couple others as well. There was something retail oriented, and I think that the purpose of PCDC should be bringing primary jobs. So I didn't see the need in supporting one of the retail initiatives as well. But I think more so than that is asking incisive, scrutinizing questions earlier in the game, and I think I learned that from the GT distributors example, so that those things can be ironed out before it comes to board, before it comes to a public meeting. And I think that happens via email, that happens working with the staff. And even though I have dissented, I think I do have a good relationship with the staff because I've learned how to work with them and how to ask those questions early. What else?
Well, let me ask you on your, you said you dissented on a retail initiative project. What is your position on that? I mean, obviously PCDC derives their income through retail tax. So what's your position on retail?
So I think, we always want an all of the above approach with everything, whether it's, mixed use, live world play, small, multifamily versus bigger homes, or high income jobs versus working wage jobs, or whatever it is. yes, but at some point, there's a limited staff, there's limited resources, and there needs to be opportunity costs and compromises made in prioritizing. So when it's a question of primary jobs versus retail, I would say go for the primary jobs because there's going to be a multiplier effect. They're going to bring in the retail. We don't have to intentionally focus on that. I'd focus on the primary jobs.
Well, when you talk about primary jobs, the first elephant in the room is Amazon. Okay, a lot of primary jobs, but the majority of people don't live in Pflugerville. They take their paycheck and go spend it in Killeen and Temple and wherever they come from. So I would kind of disagree with you that primary jobs are certainly the what's the word? The gospel of PCDC. But I think that we have to be careful in terms of having their applicant indicating there's not enough white collar jobs in Pflugerville, or at least her perception is. I'm not necessarily sold on that either, but I think primary jobs is relative. And so, yeah, that's the role of PCDC. But I think more recently, I think we're losing out on a lot of retail businesses that could come here as well.
I agree, and I think it depends on what kind of retail we're talking about and where as well. So Prost Ale House was something that I voted for because I think it's reviving downtown because it is a small business that is going to bring a sense of community and identity to the downtown area. That people can have a happy hour there, that they can meet on the rooftop, and so I feel like it depends on what retail and not just primary jobs over retail.
And it should be what primary jobs
Sure.
too,
Absolutely.
obviously.
What's your vision or viewpoint on land banking?
So, I think that the difference, City Council and PCDC have a similar goal, right? And distinct approaches based on their charters and what they do, right? And in some ways, PCDC has the ability to do things like land bank in order to invest in long-term opportunities that maybe other councils, city council, or other arms of the city can't do. So I see that as one of many tools in a toolbox that PCDC can use well.
So earlier, and I apologize, Darrell, if I misspeak for you again, but it seemed to me you were saying that one of the directions you want to do is get the feel of council while you're on PCDC and do what council wants to bring to Pflugerville and everything else. Do you agree with that? I mean, because I certainly do. That was refreshing to hear it. That yes, we are the ultimate deciders in the direction that we want to see this city go. If you should see PCDC going in another direction, or at least the staff or whoever, are you ready to stand up with Mr. White and voice your dissension that, hey, that's not what council wants?
I think that I need, if I'm on the PCDC board, I need one of I think my favorite moments when I was on the board during my one term was a co-working session we had with council where we talked about the vision of PCDC of the city of Pflugerville, the identity of the city of Pflugerville in a very, I think, more theoretical and abstract way, and it helped me understand how these two entities do work together in harmony, right? And I think that it would be my job if I were on PCDC board to be more aware of what City Council is doing, what City Council wants to do, and how City Council sees PCDC working with Council to make that happen and to make Pflugerville move forward. And yes, then I don't think I know enough now to be able to dissent, but I would hope to be able to understand City Council's vision better, and then yes, move that forward through my role on PCDC.
Well, I would say also that it's not necessarily just moving forward, is certainly expressing your opinion, your position, your assessment of you know, just because we're here telling PCDC what to do, it may not be the best thing to do, but I would like to believe it is, okay? But I think what we're also looking for in the past, where we've had board members that have come present, be present before council, they really have not said anything. So it's like we're not getting any feedback, any impressions of what their role is, what your role would be. And I would think that your role would be very proactive and interactive. And while, you know, we're not necessarily the experts on economic development, although we've seen a lot of development and understand it, that a new and different perspective certainly is important.
Yes, and, you know, there's a reason why the PCDC board isn't all city council members, and this is a conversation you had at the beginning of this meeting. As a citizen member of the PCDC board, I would bring in my perspective, my neighbors, the conversations I'm having with other residents of PCDC, and you know, there's a personal motivation for me to give up my time on a volunteer board, and that is because I'm rooted in this community, because I want to see a future for this community and for my kids.
And let me ask you, I'm sorry, I know you're on the east side of town, right? So how often do you drive around the city of Pflugerville?
I do, and I walk around Lake Pflugerville and bike around Lake Pflugerville, and I get my eggs from a farm that does like a doggy daycare a few miles north of my house as well. So I see the rural, and I enjoy eating their fresh eggs, and I see the development too right around the lake on the south side, and I'm excited for the new HEB because I could walk to it. So in some ways, I see myself as you know, a representative of what the future of Pflugerville is. I'm a new resident. I'm a Bay Area transplant. My husband works in tech at Applied Materials. I've got a young family, you know, so I think, the future of Pflugerville. Multicultural, multilingual, multi-religious.
Well, you've been here 3 years, is that correct, in Pflugerville?
Yeah, almost 4 years.
Almost
God
4.
bless you.
I would hope that you'd like to live here the rest of your life. I mean, I know that's sometimes not always a predictable thing, and circumstances and job opportunities. You know, living in Pflugerville for 3 to 5 years is not an experience at all. It's not. And although I do appreciate the fact that you're here and you're a taxpayer, thank you very much. And certainly a volunteer and have volunteered in the past. I think that's a significant role of any citizen in this community. Whether they choose to take it or not, it's at least there, and I'm glad you've decided to do that.
Thank you.
You have incredible experience with post-secondary education institutions. Not the least of them might be the University of Texas, but I think also saw Princeton and maybe Stanford. I didn't see Cornell. I won't hold that against you.
Well, those are all lower institutions, so that's okay.
Tell me, do you think that those connections might bring us a satellite campus for any of those schools, and or give you the skills to navigate discussions with other regional schools that might be looking to come here?
Maybe the second. I don't know about the first. I think that workforce development and economic development need to work hand in hand. And this conversation's happened with a few of the other interviews, that there needs to be local opportunities for that higher education, that in-demand work skill set. We can have a conversation about the future of higher education if you want to, and that would be a whole other
Another hour?
Yeah.
We can stretch that out. I think I recall 5 or 6 years ago, PCDC conducted a marketing study that looked at the two biggest impacts for spurring economic development within communities. And one of those with a hospital, we checked that off. I think the second one was an institution of higher learning. And so that's always been a passion of mine. I haven't kept that a secret. And happy to see someone else supporting that as well.
Anybody else have any other questions? This is your chance.
If you could wave a magic wand and put an institution of higher learning in Pflugerville, where would you put it?
Along 130 so everyone can see it when they're driving.
There you go.
That's an interesting answer.
Yeah, but that's a non-tax-based institution, so we don't want to do that.
It would be a for-profit. It would be like Google University or something. Yeah.
Let's be careful where we
TikTok
put those.
University.
Nice.
Elon's creating a school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, council, we've spent 2 hours about 2 hours interviewing candidates. We have 4 positions to fill.
Mr. Mayor, will you accept a motion?
I thought we were gonna do the way we did before.
Yeah.
Yeah, before we
God bless
vote on that. But I do want to circle back to our original discussion and ask Councilmember Ruiz, Caesar, do you think we have enough qualified applicants to pick from here? Do you think we need to put your name in?
Well, I gotta tell you, anyway, for me, no, but we have 7 of us, so, yeah.
So I think that council should certainly use some judgment here. It's we don't have to fill all 4, although I think the executive director wants us to do that so she can have a quorum. But it's not breaking the law or committing a sin if we don't fill all positions.
So do you want to go one by one?
I would like to go one by one.
Mr. Mayor, that,
Hold on.
We will need to indicate there are 3 positions for a 2-year term and 1 position for a 1-year term.
we're going to go one by one, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move that we appoint Mr. Thompson to the board.
Second.
Hold on just a minute.
Wait.
Trista, you remember how we did this? It seemed like we went through and everybody said,
Yeah.
said a name. So like
that's gonna
for
take
position 1,
We've already done position 1.
yeah,
So-
I mean, well, whatever the next position.
Yeah, so why don't we start with position 7 since it's a reappointment for one?
Well,
So at the last meeting, it was everyone listed their top however many
Yeah.
of open positions there were. So for this one, it would be the top 3 or 4, depending on how you want to do it with the 1-year term. That's sort of in limbo.
well, here's the dilemma or conundrum here is that we have several qualified candidates, and while Mr. Rogers might nominate or list candidate A, I might list candidate B, and they're both super qualified, and I'm not sure how we get there.
So the way we did it for, I think, the library board, when we had candidates is we did a pick 4. And so we each go around publicly and pick 4 names, and Trista aggregates those. And we see if there's a hierarchy of 4 folks that get the most votes.
Yeah.
And then we make an official motion to appoint those 4. The one who would get the 4th vote would be the 1-year term, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so
then,
we go with.
so it's a 2-step deal.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
My 4.
And you
so
don't have to
Do you-
appoint
you-
for
you-
it.
the only thing, which throws in a wrench over here as well, so you would like us to consider you?
Sure, I'd say that, but if you feel that there's others more on, qualified, then that's why I mentioned Councilman Rogers, you don't have to pick 4. Just because there's, 5 or 6 of them, you don't have to
Yeah.
pick 4.
7.
This is where we have to make those tough decisions that we keep talking about, and that we did well last time, as Councilman Matera said. So,
Okay,
I'd like to,
before we make any motions, Mayor, can I ask for a 5-minute recess so I can get some
Sure.
coffee and take care of?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
leave you on suspense, huh?
I don't know, suspense. We got, some people need to get some rest.
Oh, you don't-
5-minute or 6-minute?
He said 5. He said 5. He said 5.
I
He
just
said 5
need to
minutes.
run over
Go.
to the-
I'm literally just taking the time to make my list.
Are we all back?
38
He will have that.
calories running the marathon.
Oh,
Okay, so we're going to proceed with the tally
Kept circling.
for the appointment to 2-year positions. Repeat what we're gonna do here,
So,
Trista.
so my thought would, oh, sorry.
We have 3 positions that are open with 2-year terms and 1 position for a 1-year term. However you would prefer to.
So Mayor, my thinking was that we would all pick our 4,
Yeah,
and then based on the ranking,
that's, okay, that's fine.
The
Yeah,
last
that's what I
that's the
thought.
1 year.
Yeah,
the lowest
Right.
would get.
okay,
Okay.
all right. Mr. Rogers?
Let's go, David.
I want to start with Thompson, Mitchell, White, and Hussein. Did I pronounce that
Yeah,
last name right?
You go by last names.
Hussein? Hussein, not Hussein. My apologies.
Mine are Pysick, Thompson, White, and Hussein.
Samantha, Darrell, Anita, Caesar.
Mr. White, Ms. Hussein, Councilman Ruiz, and Mr. Thompson.
Who's your 4th? Who's your 4th?
Thompson, Ruiz, Hussein.
Oh, let's see.
Oh, you in on me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going over and over. So, I'm gonna go with Thompson, White, Ruiz, and Hussein.
Mr. White, Mr. Thompson, and I guess myself.
That's 3.
Doing a 4th?
Are you doing a 4th? Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'll go with Jeff, Darrell, Anita, and Oscar.
I'm going to throw a wrench in this. The place 4 position is not listed on the agenda, so that appointment cannot be made tonight.
Oh, thanks. Our lawyer over here, but that's okay. That's all right.
The place for
Dude, I'm just throwing it up.
The place 4, is that the 1-year one, or?
Yeah, it's the
That's
1 year
the
one.
Only
Okay.
3.
So we can do that.
so
Just
if
means
I'm-
the top 3 would be.
Yeah.
If I'm reading the numbers right, that makes it Jeff, Darrell, and Anita. And then at our next meeting, we can put Caesar into the 1 year spot, which seems appropriate.
I have Jeff, Darrell, and Anita.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, I think that's what I said.
Yeah.
Trista, is that your number?
Because you and I call them by their first names. Everybody else said the last name.
Yeah, I only had their first names written
Coming,
down. So I hope I
coming
counted
from
correctly.
Mr. Data Man over there, I think that's probably correct.
Motion to appoint
Did she say it was right? Okay, cool.
Okay.
Jeff Thompson. We don't need to define the places, they're all 2 years, so you can fill them in.
We probably
We probably should.
Well, go ahead and,
should.
Yeah, let's put
Got the list right here.
Mr. Thompson in place 3, Mr.
Yeah, just
Mr.
do
White
that.
in place 5, and Ms. Hussein in place 7.
Sounds like
okay, have
my
a motion?
Mr. Rogers stole my motion.
Just say
Have a second?
Just say second.
Second.
Are we back online? In here?
In a minute.
Wow. Make a note.
See, that's you, me and Jim, hand in glove.
Did you already say? He said, I'm
Because
gonna
of
make a note
continued issues, I'm going to ask for it to be a voice vote. It's stuck on a previous vote. And I
Needs to
don't
be a
want it
voice vote?
Yes, please.
Voice vote.
It looked like it worked.
Okay. Mr. Rogers,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Mateo.
Yes.
Mayor votes yes. Ms. Holliday,
Yes.
Mr. Ruiz.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wise.
Yes.
A motion carried. Thank you.
One thing we didn't bring up, but I think he said it like Jeff, you're okay. You're going to resign, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure I was on the record.
He just did.
Okay.
So that means that the
He
next
ju-
meeting where
he-
we appoint place 4, we also need
We
to,
should bring back for the TERS.
TERS. We need to bring a TERS.
And I'll be bringing some recommendations for that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Moving on. All right. Item 6B, conduct introductions and take action to make appointments to the Finance and Budget Committee for up to 2 citizen members for 2-year terms beginning January 1st, 2024, and up to 1 council member for a term ending 2024 general election. And I think we have Lucas Martin. Is he here today? And by the way, newly elected PCDC board members, congratulations. I'm sorry. Thank you very much for being here. Lucas Martin.
Good evening, council members. Lucas Martin. Lived in Pflugerville for 2.5 years. Moved from Nebraska. Previously lived in South Dakota. My experience, my career has been in budget and finance. Worked for the South Dakota State Legislature for about 3 years, specifically in fiscal and program analysis. And then moved to Nebraska and worked for the governor's office there, specifically on property tax issues, mostly with school funding formulas. And now moved to Texas, moved to Pflugerville, and worked for Deloitte, specifically as a state and local grants administrator for different state and local governments.
Okay.
I really want to ask you about our school funding formula, but
Yeah, don't do that.
We don't have
Where'd
time
you-
for that.
we don't have time for that.
Yeah, where'd you go to school?
I went to the University of South Dakota.
Okay. You've won a lot of national championships.
Unfortunately, that's SDSU. I went to USD, so I hear about it a lot.
Okay. Any questions, council?
We gotta have some questions. Let's see.
Well, I think anybody wanting to delve into finance and budget and numbers, kudos to you. I mean,
What specifically brought you to Pflugerville?
My wife and I looked at moving to different areas around Austin, but when we came to Pflugerville, it was kind of what you guys were all talking about earlier, was the little big town part of it. The Main Street seemed like a town that I grew up in South Dakota, 3,500 people, the Main Street specifically, but the opportunities around the Main Street that really drew us in. So we've enjoyed it so far.
You certainly have experience in finances. I mean, it's always good, but your experiences have to deal with elected officials.
Yeah.
So, it's a completely different type of gamut compared to working with the city's finance.
Yeah.
And budget. What assurances can you give us that you have this ability to be able to cross that bridge and be able to be successful in this area?
Yeah, I think looking at budgets, looking at working with agencies where I've really cut my teeth when I worked for the South Dakota legislature. The way it worked was we worked with the agencies. They brought all their recommendations to us as staff. We then combed through those and then brought those to the elected officials. So I think that part of it, of working with the boots on the ground part of it, and making, or at least looking at the different proposed projects or proposed budget items and making those, or bringing those to elected officials in a way that makes sense, and quantifying those to this is going to be an X amount percentage. This is what we're going to need from property tax revenues or whatever it might be. That's still the same, I think. Obviously, the dollars are going to be a lot different.
So you sound like you worked for an entity, we call it the LBB, Legislative Budget Board
Yep.
in Texas.
Very similar.
Okay.
so one of the things that I think we have emphasized over the years is transparency. And because it's important to our community and citizens, taxpayers especially.
Mm-hmm.
And surprisingly, there are a number of people who do go in and look at the city's budget and projects and proposals that are coming before us, and we get a lot of feedback on that, as you might
Sure.
imagine. Have you looked at the budget by any chance?
I have looked
Okay.
at the budget, yeah.
Okay.
And I think you guys do a very good job of transparency where you show what makes up a dollar, the
Right.
portion that goes to ISD, the portion that goes to the city, the portion that goes to wastewater and other projects and stuff like that. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I think you guys are doing a great
Okay.
job with this.
Good.
What was your degree in?
Economics,
Economics.
minor in political science.
What's an example of you utilizing your skill set in a teamwork fashion to get something accomplished?
So when I worked for the governor's office in Nebraska, they have a big property tax school funding formula issue up there. I think it's pretty common across many states. When I worked in a team on that project of we were bringing a number of different proposals to the governor to say this is what you could do to lower property taxes, or this is what to shake up the school funding formula. I'll say my experience or what I was able to bring to the table is, I'll just say, dumbing things down a little bit. So I like to think I can be a numbers guy. I'm a very, very good with numbers, but I like to think that my experience in working with South Dakota legislature, working with elected officials, has allowed me to bring a different perspective of being able to display what changes mean, what decisions people are going to make, what quantifying those and describing
You're
those.
saying you can explain a budget to a fifth grader.
Right, I think so.
Welcome aboard. No,
That's it.
You said you looked at our budget and you think it's pretty good in terms of transparency. What could we do to improve the transparency?
So I think I was listening back to a previous committee meeting, I think that you were part of, specifically Budget and Finance Committee, and you were talking about not only looking at what the property tax levy change means, but what the property value, what that means. I think when we look at obviously we're seeing a big growth in property value, not only residential, but commercial as well. Demonstrating that when your property value goes up, what does that also mean, or what should your levy potentially be doing as well? Because I think people are seeing, like my house went up, 10 or 15, 20%. Sometimes the valuation went up, but not saying the value that's being taxed on is going up that much. But quantifying that not only the levy changes, but the value changes, I think is big, and showing or just lining that out to people.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's important because a lot of times the citizens just see, oh, my tax rate's going up. But
Exactly.
what's the other side of the picture? You know?
Yeah, your value or whatever that might be changing that as well.
Are we done?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
James Travis Smith.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me here. You see on the application, I have lived here for a little over 6 years now, I believe, or a little less than 6 years. I'm a Harvey refugee, actually. We had a 50-foot palm tree fall in our house, and so my parents lived here, and my brother lived here. He owns the Doubledays in Hutto and a bunch of Doubledays around town, and we decided that was our sign to move on up here. And down there, I was a teacher. I retired from doing that, and since moving up here, I have been a real estate agent. I've owned a construction company. I own a marketing company, and I also run a network of real estate and construction individuals, about 38,000 strong, that I'm head of.
What's that network called?
Contractor Connection, Austin.
Okay.
And you have time to volunteer?
Yes. I am blessed with a father-in-law who lives at our house, and he helps take care of the kids, and I wouldn't consider really any of those jobs outside of running a construction company too labor-intensive. So, no disrespect to anybody in those.
So tell us, in terms of team building, how you built Contractor Connections and how you got it so large.
So what we did is, as we actually started it the day after the COVID shutdown. So I believe that would have been March 18th of 2020. And we had already a pretty good reputation with the community, my former business partner and I. And so what we did is we ran a contest for every person that would be added. We would donate $1 to the Central Food Bank, which at the time was feeding quite a lot of people. There was lines going out the door for that. And so we ended up getting about 1,700 people in there, and 3 different companies matching the dollar for dollar, and we're able to donate like $6,000. It's not a huge amount of money, but for something that was just starting out, we were pretty excited and proud of that. And it has continued to build out of service to the community and continue to grow in a way that we are trying to eliminate a lot of the fraud and scamming and theft that goes on in construction through a verification process that we've instituted privately.
That's good.
I guess, so, being a business owner, I know there's a lot of aspects to it. I'm not an accountant. I don't, I rely on other people to keep me out of tax jail. What in your background as a real estate agent, construction company owner, et cetera, what specifically gives you insight into the budgeting process and fund management?
So when we talk about building up these construction company, the marketing company, it's not like I had money to start these up. I bootstrapped these. So for the first few years of each of those, I did the accounting along with all the other hats that we would wear. Now, obviously, a company's budget is dramatically different than a city budget, state budget, etc. But the principles are the same in terms of income, revenue versus outgoing, and lining those things up in the most efficient way possible.
Thank you.
What did you teach?
I taught 5th grade at a private school down in Victoria, like I said, where I'm from. I taught for 8 years. I loved every second of being a teacher. But
already.
what's
You're
that?
lying to me?
No, I really, if you start a year with this group of kids and you go through that whole year, and at that school, we didn't do different classes or anything like that. They were just in my room, and to see how they would progress from the beginning of the year to the end of the year is one of the more amazing things that you can experience as a human. Now, everything else about teaching, I wasn't the biggest fan of. But the actual education part of that is something that I still carry through in my real estate and my construction and my networking stuff. Again, I go back to the network part of what we want to do is help educate small business owners. There's a whole lot of really talented plumbers, talented electricians, talented HVAC guys who are fantastic at that, but they don't know how to run a business. And we want to help try and educate them to do those things. With right now an increasing focus on ESL business owners as well. So,
Good idea.
See, not everybody's as cynical about education as you are, Susan.
Only when they say they loved it all the time. No.
I love the teaching. You caught me at a pep rally. I wasn't smiling.
He did delineate.
He did.
All right, any other questions, council? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's great. Would you entertain a motion?
Hold on.
So with the change in the resolution from the last meeting, there are 2 open positions with 1-year terms. We've changed the FAB committee to 1-year term, and it's all voice vote from here on out.
Okay. All right, so we have 2 candidates filling 2 1-year positions.
Motion to appoint Lucas Martin?
Oh, are we going one by one?
Or
I did.
Okay.
Will you accept a friendly amendment to add James Travis Smith to your motion?
I will not.
Okay. All right, so
Okay.
let's go with him first. I'll second that.
All right, have a motion to appoint Lucas Martin in a second.
Second?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Mr. Rogers?
I already
No.
seconded it. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it voice vote?
Yes, I'm sorry. I forgot we were all voice voting.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Mateer? Mayor votes yes.
Yes.
Holiday?
Yes.
And Mr.
Yes.
Weiss? Motion carried. Thank you.
Motion to approve James Travis Smith.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve Mr. Smith. Mayor Pro Tem Weiss?
I'm afraid I just don't see the relevant experience. I'm going to vote no.
Okay. Mr.
Yes.
Ruse? Ms. Holliday?
Yes.
Mayor votes yes. Mr. Mateer?
Yes.
And Mr. McDonald?
No.
And Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you very much. Welcome to the FAB Committee, Mr. Smith and Mr. Martin. We do have an appointment of, we don't?
No, that's from a previous iteration of FAB. There is no longer that position.
Okay.
There's no longer what position?
So the agenda includes a position for a council member. That is from a previous iteration of the FAB committee. There is no longer a council member position on the committee.
Okay,
Right, we took that
that's
off.
fine. All right, very good. Thank you.
You say Mr. Rogers caused that much damage that we decided to.
Item 6C, discuss and consider action to approve a resolution of the City Council of the City of Pflugerville, Texas, directing the city manager or the city manager's designee to execute all documents to institute eminent domain proceedings for the acquisition of land situated for permanent easements and or temporary construction easements in Pflugerville, Travis County, Texas, and directing the city attorney to initiate condemnation proceedings associated with the secondary Colorado River Raw Water Line project.
Thank you all for hanging out with us.
Yes, I almost changed my opening to good morning.
Oh, we've gone longer.
Yes.
Still early.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Ms. Breland, Norma Martinez, Real Estate Manager for the city. With me, I have Zane Watson with Seven Arrows Land Staff, a real estate land agent, and Adolfo Ruiz, which is our legal counsel, assisting with the eminent domain process. This resolution is for the City of Austin parcels for the secondary Colorado River Raw Water Line. This project entails 15 miles of raw water line, which go through the City of Austin parkland, which we need to proceed with eminent domain.
I like that.
Any questions?
Questions?
My understanding, this is a necessary process. Austin can't just sell it to us.
Correct.
Yes.
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 And to avoid any
They-
delays, we need to proceed.
Yes, that's
Yes.
a good way to put it.
So,
I was going to make a motion.
Yeah.
well, by our action tonight, assuming we vote yes, so does this go back to the City of Austin, City Council?
No, this would proceed to
Okay.
Adolfo proceeding with a petition to the court, and then we'll go through the process.
Okay, good.
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to move approval of item 6C. Are we voice voiding? Voice avoiding. Mayor Pro Tem Weiss.
Yes.
Councilman Reese.
Yes.
Councilwoman Holiday.
Yes.
Mayor votes yes. Mr. Mateer.
Yes.
Mr. McDonald.
Yes.
And Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
I'll stay for the next one.
Oh, okay, well,
We have a
good.
few of them. All right.
6D, all right. Treat me that way, all right. Discuss and consider action to approve a resolution of the City Council of the City of Pflugerville, Texas, directing the city manager, can I just say ditto?
Nice try.
Sorry.
Not that late.
Directing the city manager or the city manager's designee to execute all documents, institute eminent domain proceedings for the acquisition of land situated for permanent easements, temporary construction easements, and access easements in Pflugerville, Travis County, Texas, and directing the city attorney to initiate condemnation proceedings associated with the secondary Colorado River Water Line project.
Yes, this also is a resolution for the secondary Colorado River water line. We've acted in good faith with the property owners to come to an agreement, negotiating almost a year. We still have not come to an agreement, so we need to proceed with eminent domain to avoid any delays with this project.
And this is how many parcels?
36,
36 parcels out of how many total?
60.
Whoa.
60.
Out of 60.
Mhm.
All right. Move to approve 60 as presented.
I'll second that.
Your eyes are saying something.
It's just that that's a rather high percentage. Is that normal in a project like this?
It is a big project. Some of the property owners have 4 or 5 parcels, so we put them individually. So it sounds like a big number, but it's actually like less, you would say. Yes.
How
I'm
many
sorry,
property-
what was
It's
that?
15 miles.
Right, right. But how
Yes.
many distinct property owners?
Unique, yeah.
More or less.
Total transactions is 60, but it's
Yes.
29 packages.
So it's
29 distinct property owners,
property
and how
owners?
many in this process were eminent domain?
As Zane had mentioned, like 29
29.
packages.
29
Yes.
packages. Those
Yes.
aren't distinct
Mhm.
necessarily. There's 29 packages.
Yes.
20. I'm
So there's-
having a hard time. Could you come
Yeah,
up to
so
the
you,
podium, please?
so what I heard is that there are 29 packages,
Correct.
but that the package does not answer
Come
the
up-
question.
to the mic.
The question
Yeah,
is,
we
how
haven't
many
defined
unique
package.
owners are there?
Yeah.
Are
What's
you
a
defining a
package?
package as an owner or a package as a parcel?
As either a one parcel or a group of parcels.
So a
but
package
not
is-
with distinct ownership.
Not necessarily 29 different owners, no.
So the question that Mayor Pro Tem asked was, so how many distinct ownerships are involved in this?
I'd have to get to that number. I don't have
So
that.
it's more than 29? Or under 29?
It'd be 29 or less.
Less. Under.
And I'm sorry, that's the number in this eminent domain process, or
Correct.
total over the project.
Yes, 60 transactions and 29 of them we are submitting for eminent domain.
I thought I heard 38 parcels.
I had said
but
36 because if you count them individually, because some
36
of the property
parcels.
owners have 4 or 5 parcels together.
Okay, 36 parcels, 29
Packages,
packages.
less than that owners.
Owners.
Is this typical for a project like this? Because that's, half of the parcels going to court.
With my experience, I couldn't say it's typical or not.
How long have you
To be
been doing
honest.
this?
Right away, 3 years. Our firm's been doing it for 12.
I mean, I'm wondering what you did then. To be blunt.
Yeah, I mean,
How did we get to this point? This sounds out of bounds to me. It sounds unreasonable that we would have such a large proportion of parcels needing to go to eminent domain. Obviously, we're at a point in the project where we feel we need to, but it makes me wonder how we got here.
So, Mayor,
because that seems inappropriate.
Mayor, if I may, can we move to executive session to seek legal counsel on this item?
Well, we can.
I don't think we need legal counsel. I think we need discussion on value of the property, and so it's more of a land use.
Oh, no, I have a legal
real property.
question.
Oh, okay. Well, let's also include real property because I think based on the questions I'm in here, that's also going to be part of the question.
So we're in executive session.
For purposes of legal counsel and real property under the.
Correct. Okay.
Sounds good.
We want to bring them back.
From executive session, no action was taken. So I had a motion and a second on item 6D.
Okay.
Is this voice vote again? Or are we? Okay. Okay, thank you. Mr. Rogers,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Mateer.
Yes.
Mayor votes yes. Ms. Holliday,
Yes.
Mr. Ruiz,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you. All right. Are you still up?
Yes,
Okay.
one more.
Discuss, item 6C, discuss and consider action to approve a resolution of the City Council of the City of Pflugerville, Texas, directing city manager or the city manager's designee to execute all documents to institute eminent domain proceedings for the acquisition of the right-of-way in Pflugerville, Travis County, Texas, and directing city attorney to initiate condemnation proceedings associated with the Colorado Sand Drive project. So this is a different project, right?
Yes, Norma Martinez, real estate manager. This project is for Colorado Sand Drive roadway project, which we need to go to eminent domain for parcel number 2.
We done partial number 1? I'm just, no.
I want to hear what Thomas is going to say.
I'm happy to answer any questions on this one. This is for the final remaining track that we need for the Colorado Sands project. Pretty straightforward. I think everybody's pretty familiar with this one.
Y'all have worked quite diligently.
ISD finally came through, huh?
No, this one's the.
No.
Oh, this is a different one,
This
huh?
is a different one.
All right.
Y'all.
Sorry,
yeah.
ISD.
No, I
All
mean,
right. Don't get mad at me this time.
And for the record, this one was requested by the property owner.
was requested by property owner.
Yes.
Okay.
Obviously.
Mayor, would you entertain him?
Yes. Second.
Have a motion and second to approve 6D. Mr. Rogers,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald.
Yes.
Mr. Mateer.
Yes.
Mayor votes yes. Ms. Holliday.
Yes.
Mr. Ruiz.
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Motion carried.
I love the obviously.
Item 6F. Thank you very much, by the way, staff.
Thank you.
Discuss and consider action regarding engaging construction law firm for as-needed construction legal services.
Thank you, Mayor. I have gone out and done some due diligence looking at qualified law firms to handle some of our more complex construction litigation issues, as we don't have that expertise in-house. And I want to make sure we have the appropriate personnel for this body to utilize when we run into transactional or complex litigation claims. I've brought forward, and they're in your packet, the bios for three firms that we have become. I have, through my research and due diligence, are 3 of the better highly rated construction law firms in the Austin area. Tonight, I'm asking you to do basically whatever you want. But I wanted, there are several ways to go about this, but I thought the best first way was to give you the information and let you have a discussion about, do you want all 3 of these folks to come before you, and so that you can have a discussion with them? Would you like me to continue doing some due diligence and looking? If you're not happy with what you've seen, do you want me to bring just a couple of them back? I'm just trying to get some direction so we can get somebody on board moving forward. Also included in your packet is the name of the law firm and the associated rates, which is also very important in addition to the qualifications. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Charlie, you continued to say 3. I saw 4 in the packet.
Yes, I'm sorry. I included Mr. Chapman's firm just for purposes of comparison, and also so if you wanted to continue
so you
utilizing
support.
them. Yes.
Okay. What are the wishes of council?
Will they be working directly with you, or will they be working with staff?
Oh, they would be working under my direction and with staff as city
I'd
attorney.
like to hear staff's recommendation too. If they're going to be working with staff.
I didn't have any discussions with staff. They'd be working under the direction of the city attorney's office. I did my due diligence on their qualifications. I'm happy to get with staff if that's the direction of council and have further discussions with staff if necessary.
I'd like for him to come. I'd like to interview him. I like for sure.
Are you comfortable with the 3 that I have in front of you, or?
I mean, I'm familiar with all. Yeah, I'm familiar with the 3, and Coconuts in particular.
Yeah.
They're very good.
And I'm sorry, boy, his name has dropped out of my head, Councilmember Mateer, but I reached out, I think you had mentioned a name to me and I reached out to him. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Anyway, I had worked with him on other issues and he is no longer in the area. And so he gave me some recommendations and two of these law firms were part of his recommendations. And I had already, he just confirmed what I already thought and found out.
He's
He's a top-notch,
the expert.
he's a top-notch plaintiff's lawyer.
Yeah,
For
he
sure.
is. The reason why you go to plaintiff's lawyers.
All right, so we'll have the,
And I'm sorry, I'm going to back up. And I do recommend that we choose a couple of these because the problem that we're going to run into with many of these types of law firms, because they tend to represent owners more than they represent others, is that conflicts could arise often. And so we need to make sure we have a couple of folks that we can look to, so if there's a conflict with one of the firms, we can look to the other one.
That's fair. That's fair.
okay. So Charlie will have these candidates or firms
I
come
will,
back.
I will coordinate to make sure they are all here.
Okay,
Is that appropriate?
sounds good.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
All right, we had an item pulled on the agenda, what was it?
Rudy. Yeah.
4J.
All right, come get your platitudes, Thomas.
Item 4J
this
is
is the
approving
one.
a real
Okay,
estate
okay.
sales contract between the city of Pflugerville and
Someone
Pflugerville
else
Independent
was-
School District in the amount of $669,000 for acquisition of 1.389 acres of right-of-way associated with the Colorado Sand Drive project and authorizing the city manager to execute the same.
So are you requesting a presentation on it, or, I'm sorry,
I thought I already told you what I was going to do.
that you were going to thank us for our wonderful work
That's exactly
on
what-
getting this
Th-
done?
this-
So I think that's Rom's, getting it done.
Come on up.
Rom, please come forward and say thank you and nod a lot.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager. Thank you for the opportunity to present.
We don't need a presentation.
No, yeah.
So we're here this evening to approve a real estate sale contract.
Oh, I was just.
It's good.
Yes.
I honestly was just wanted you to come up here. I know this is a significant deal. It's been an issue for our community for a long period of time.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you to you and other staff who have been working on this
Appreciate
to get this done because this is a long time coming, and I know how complicated it is. Even though we've gotten some people who agreed in publicly.
We're almost there.
Done,
We're almost there.
we finally got organized. So excellent work.
Yes.
And,
Mayor,
and
would
this
you
is already counter executed.
Yes, it already. That was the part that was we were waiting on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, would you
Motion?
turn motion?
Yep.
Motion approved.
Second. Have motion, second to approve 4J. Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Mateer?
Yes.
Mayor votes yes. Ms. Holliday? Mr. Ruiz?
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you very much. And we're adjourned.